The clinking of glasses and the soft murmur of conversations filled the air in one of LA's most exclusive restaurants. The dim lighting reflected off polished wood and marble, setting the scene for a night of fine dining. Waiters weaved expertly between tables, their crisp white shirts and black aprons a sharp contrast to the elegant decor. Everything about the place screamed luxury. It was the kind of restaurant where even the most casual conversation seemed important. At the bar, Lily Collins stood with her back to the rest of the room, scanning through her phone. She had just finished a long shift, but her work wasn't over yet. Her social media had exploded with activity, thanks to another politically charged post she had made earlier in the day. People either loved or hated her opinions, and tonight, her disdain for the rich and powerful was front and center. Lily wasn't shy about her beliefs. She was a self-declared liberal activist, proud of her ideals and quick to voice them. For her, wealth inequality was a major issue, and she wasn't afraid to call out the elite whenever they crossed her path, even if it was in the form of a customer sitting at table 10. Her best friend, Jenna, who worked as a hostess, approached from behind, her face slightly concerned. "Lily, are you sure about this? He's, an old-school celebrity. He's practically a walking legend," Jenna said, glancing nervously toward the restaurant's entrance. Lily rolled her eyes, tapping the phone screen with her finger. "Please, Jenna. It's just some rich old guy trying to relive his glory days. If he doesn't get my order right, I'll have to explain it again, and I don't have time for that tonight." Jenna frowned, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I heard that Clint Eastwood is dining tonight. The real Clint Eastwood." Lily's eyes narrowed. "Clint Eastwood?" She turned to face her friend, her expression a mix of disbelief and amusement. "Are we supposed to be in awe of him because he made a few Western movies? Big deal. Let him have his steak, but it won't change the fact that men like him have no real understanding of what's happening outside their bubble." Jenna hesitated but then shrugged, a little defeated. "Just don't be too hard on him. He's a big deal." "Yeah, a big deal who probably doesn't know how many people can't afford to eat at places like this," Lily muttered as she turned back to the bar, her mind already preoccupied with the latest political debate that had erupted on her timeline. She was going to need more than one glass of wine tonight to deal with it all. The evening continued without much fanfare as the dinner crowd settled in, and Lily's attention drifted back to the digital world in her palm. As she scrolled, she failed to notice the man who had just walked into the restaurant, his presence hardly noticed by anyone else, but unmistakable to anyone who knew Hollywood history. The old man was dressed simply, a button-up shirt and slacks. He was unremarkable, except for his stoic presence that seemed to have an almost magnetic effect on the staff. Clint Eastwood, however, had grown used to being a shadow, moving unnoticed in public spaces. He didn't crave attention anymore. But tonight, something told him that things might be different. Lily's shift was far from over when she was assigned to serve the table where Clint had been seated. With a sigh, she grabbed the notepad and pen, trying her best to tune out the rising tension in the air. Another rich guy, another fancy meal, she thought. It had been a long day. As she approached the table, Clint looked up, his sharp eyes catching hers for a brief moment. She glanced at his face and looked away, unbothered. A few seconds later, she began to take his order. "Good evening, sir. What can I get you tonight?" she asked without even acknowledging his famous name. Clint, with a small, knowing smile, gave a slight nod and began to list his preferences, but Lily wasn't interested in listening too closely. She had already made up her mind about who he was, just another man with too much money and time on his hands. "Well, I guess I'll have the steak," Clint said calmly. "And a glass of your finest red." Lily scribbled it down, glancing up at him as she jotted the notes. "Anything else? Or should I just bring you a TV remote so you can catch up on the latest rerun of Dirty Harry?" she quipped, not realizing that she had just made the biggest mistake of her night. A subtle chuckle escaped Clint's lips, but Lily mistook it for amusement, not realizing that he had caught the sarcasm in her tone. "I'll just have the steak, thanks," he said, his voice low but firm. As she turned to walk away, the restaurant's hush seemed to increase. She didn't notice the shift in atmosphere, nor did she hear the few whispers around her about the man she had just mocked. To her, it was just another meal to serve. But Clint, who had been through years of public scrutiny, laughed quietly to himself. It wasn't the first time he had been mocked for his age, his status, or his past. He had learned to let it roll off his back. However, something about the young waitress intrigued him. She didn't recognize him. And that, for some reason, made him feel more alive than he had in years. Interesting, Clint mused to himself, as he took a sip of water. He had seen the world change around him, and now, the people who looked down on him for his wealth or his age seemed less than impressive. He had lived a full life, but moments like these reminded him that there was always room for a little more unpredictability. Lily continued to check her phone, waiting for a response to her latest post. Meanwhile, she couldn't have known that, in just a few minutes, her entire perspective on wealth, status, and even herself would be turned upside down. "Hey, I'll need some help at table 10, Lily called out to her coworker, ignoring the strange feeling of tension building in the air. She was too absorbed in her world to notice the impending change. But Clint Eastwood wasn't just any old customer. He was a man who had seen and done things that most could only dream of. And his story wasn't over. In fact, Lily's life was about to take an unexpected turn, one she would never forget. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Lily had always prided herself on being the type of person who spoke her mind, no matter the cost. It was a trait she inherited from her mother, a fiery woman who never backed down from a fight, especially when it came to matters of social justice. Growing up in a small, working-class neighborhood in Chicago, Lily was taught early on to stand up for the underdog. Her mother had been a union worker, fiercely advocating for her rights and the rights of others. It was in that world of activism, late-night rallies, and neighborhood protests that Lily had learned the value of fighting for what you believed in, no matter the obstacles in your way. But life had a way of throwing curveballs, even to the most determined. When Lily was 18, her mother passed away suddenly from a heart attack. That loss hit her harder than anything else she had experienced, and it left her reeling. For months, Lily couldn't shake the feeling of being untethered, like a boat adrift in an ocean without a compass. Her life in Chicago was no longer enough. The city had become a constant reminder of what she had lost, so she packed her bags and moved to Los Angeles, hoping the change of scenery would help her escape the weight of the memories. But LA had its own struggles to offer. In the beginning, Lily lived in a small, run-down apartment in Echo Park, scraping by on whatever shifts she could get at various restaurants around the city. Her degree in political science wasn't helping much, unless she wanted to work for a non-profit, but those jobs were hard to come by, especially for someone as outspoken as her. She wasn't willing to toe the line, to play nice with the powerful people who ran these organizations. She needed a way to support herself, so she turned to the restaurant industry, where tips were abundant but the work was grueling. It didn't take long for Lily to get a job at La Mirage, one of the most exclusive restaurants in downtown Los Angeles. At first, she had been amazed by the luxury of the place. The chandeliers that sparkled above the dining tables, the fine china that glistened under the soft candlelight, and the customers, wealthy, polished, and important. It was a far cry from her humble beginnings in Chicago, and she found herself both fascinated and repulsed by the lifestyle that seemed to come so easily to these people. Her colleagues at La Mirage often reminded her that the clientele was filled with stars, actors, CEOs, politicians, and influencers. Some of them could make or break your career with a single word. Lily hated that. She hated that they held so much power over her. It didn't sit well with her sense of fairness. She believed that the system was rigged in their favor and that the rich were only getting richer while the rest of the world struggled. But she was stuck. And as much as she tried to remain true to her ideals, there were times when she had to swallow her pride just to get through the day. Her friendships at work had been a mixed bag. Jenna, her best friend and coworker, was the one person who always tried to talk her down when she got too riled up. Jenna was a little older, a little wiser, and far more pragmatic. She had learned to play the game. She didn't exactly love the way the wealthy acted, but she had come to understand that, for better or for worse, money spoke in LA. If you didn't learn to play by the rules, you'd never get anywhere. Lily wasn't like Jenna. She wasn't interested in blending in or compromising her beliefs just to get ahead. She was going to change the world, even if it meant doing so from the sidelines, working in a restaurant while shouting her political views from the rooftops. Her posts on social media were often filled with fiery rhetoric, calling out the hypocrisy of the rich and demanding social change. Her followers grew by the day, mostly people who agreed with her, but also some who followed just to watch her ruffle feathers. In her mind, she wasn't just serving food and pouring wine, she was serving justice, one rant at a time. But the truth was, the life she envisioned for herself hadn't come to fruition yet. She was still waiting for that big break, that moment when she would finally make her mark. The big, important people in LA had yet to take notice of her. She was still waiting for the moment when the world would acknowledge her passion, her brilliance, her drive. But sometimes, the universe had a funny way of working. Lily never expected the evening she was about to have. She had no idea that, by the end of it, she would no longer be the same person. That her views, her career, and even her understanding of herself would be shattered and rebuilt. As the night went on, she continued to work her shift, moving from table to table, filling drink orders, and managing the guests' various whims. She was used to the hustle. But when she returned to table 10 to check on Clint Eastwood, something felt different. There was a strange energy in the air. The other waitstaff were buzzing with quiet excitement, glancing over at the famous actor who had, unbeknownst to her, been dining alone in their midst. Still unaware, Lily didn't think much of it as she delivered his drink and took his food order. She was in the middle of a conversation with a table of high-profile guests when she overheard the whispered name. Clint Eastwood, at table 10. No way. She froze. The words hit her like a cold splash of water. Clint Eastwood. The Clint Eastwood. Her mind scrambled to put the pieces together. Had she really just made a sarcastic comment to one of Hollywood's greatest legends? Her stomach dropped, and the weight of her words began to sink in. She had mocked him, ridiculed him, and dismissed him like he was just another rich, washed-up actor. The irony hit hard. Her political ideals, her ideals about not judging a person by their wealth or status, had just been completely obliterated. And she had no idea how to fix it. Clint Eastwood wasn't just any rich person. He was a legend, a man who had shaped Hollywood for decades. And she had just treated him like an afterthought. As Lily rushed back to the kitchen, her mind was racing. The realization of what she had done hit her like a punch to the stomach. She had mocked Clint Eastwood, the man who had defined a generation of films. And she hadn't just done it once, she'd done it in front of everyone, as if she were daring him to react. She had thought he was just another rich, arrogant person, an entitled old man trying to hold on to his past glory, but now, with the weight of her mistakes settling in, she couldn't help but feel small. Her palms were sweaty as she slid the food order into the computer system, but it felt like nothing in the restaurant mattered anymore. The night, the guests, the tips, it all seemed meaningless in comparison to the gnawing regret growing in her chest. Lily, you good? Jenna's voice broke through her thoughts. She was standing next to the kitchen pass, holding a tray of appetizers, looking concerned. Lily looked at her friend, but her mouth went dry. I think I just insulted Clint Eastwood, she said in a hoarse whisper. The words felt like an accusation, even though she was speaking to herself more than Jenna. Jenna's eyebrows shot up, and she gave a half laugh, half gasp. You what? I made some stupid comment. He's sitting at table 10, right? And I mocked him about his age and, Dirty Harry. Lily's voice wavered as she spoke. I didn't know who he was. I just thought he was some rich guy who didn't get it, you know. And she trailed off, feeling the overwhelming sense of mortification flood her body. Jenna's expression shifted from shock to empathy. Lily, you can't, she paused, glancing toward the dining room. You really didn't know who he was? Lily shook her head vigorously, her face burning. No idea. I thought he was just another old guy who wants his steak rare and his wine fancy. Jenna's jaw dropped, her eyes darting toward the dining room again. Oh, honey, he's not just some old guy. He's Clint freakin' Eastwood. I'm talking about the man who directed Unforgiven, starred in Gran Torino, and, well, let's not forget, Dirty Harry. He's a living legend. A titan of Hollywood. You just insulted the one person who could actually own this entire place. Lily felt the room closing in around her. Jenna's words sliced through her like a cold blade. She had no idea what kind of man Clint Eastwood truly was, but now that she was aware of the gravity of the situation, she started to panic. What if Clint complained? What if she was fired on the spot? The weight of the potential consequences seemed unbearable. But before she could spiral further, her mind snapped back to the present. What am I supposed to do? She asked, her voice almost pleading. Jenna hesitated before responding. You need to go over there and apologize. It's the only way to salvage this. He's probably used to being mocked for his age, but that doesn't mean he'll let it slide. He's not like any other customer you've ever served. Lily swallowed hard. She didn't want to go back to that table. She didn't want to face the embarrassment of admitting that she had messed up, but Jenna was right. There was no escaping this. She had to make it right, no matter how badly she wanted to pretend the incident hadn't happened. As she gathered herself, she knew she couldn't back out now. She had to face Clint Eastwood, no matter how intimidating it felt. Lily walked out of the kitchen, her legs shaky but determined. She spotted Clint at table 10, still alone, and the sight of him seemed to cast a long shadow over her. The room had quieted, and even though the restaurant was still full of people, it felt like everyone's eyes were on her. Her heart pounded in her chest as she made her way over, trying to steady her breath. She needed to apologize. She needed to at least try to make amends. When she reached the table, Clint didn't look up immediately. He was still quietly sipping his wine, lost in thought. Lily felt a moment of hesitation, but then she took a deep breath and cleared her throat. Mr. Eastwood, she began, her voice trembling slightly but firm. I just wanted to sincerely apologize for what I said earlier. I didn't know who you were, and I made a huge mistake. She stopped for a moment, swallowing back the lump in her throat. I was out of line, and I didn't mean to offend you. I truly respect what you've done for the film industry. And I. Clint's gaze finally lifted to meet hers, his eyes sharp but not unkind. He studied her face for a moment, his expression unreadable. Lily held her breath, waiting for the inevitable rebuke. She had expected a scolding, or worse, him walking out. But instead, Clint slowly put down his glass of wine, his hands folding neatly on the table. You know, Clint said, his voice calm and steady, in all my years, I've had people mock me for a lot of things. My age, my movies, my style. But you, he paused, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. You're different. You don't recognize me. And that's refreshing. Lily blinked, her jaw dropping slightly. You're not mad. Clint chuckled softly. Mad? No. You were honest, if nothing else. And I like that. Besides, I've been called worse. I can take a joke. Lily didn't know what to say. She had expected him to be furious, to throw her out, or worse, complain to the manager and have her fired. But instead, he was calm, even amused by the situation. "Look," Clint continued, "I don't know what you believe in, but I've been around long enough to know that people like you, who stand up for what they believe in, are the ones who make real change in this world. And I respect that." Lily felt her heart skip a beat. Was this really happening? Clint Eastwood was actually complimenting her. For the first time that night, she felt a spark of hope in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, she hadn't completely ruined everything. "Thank you," she whispered, still in disbelief. I really appreciate that." Clint gave her a nod, and for a moment, the tension between them seemed to melt away. But just as Lily was about to turn away, Clint spoke again. "By the way," he said with a wry grin, "you're right about one thing, this place is full of people who have no idea what's going on in the world. And I'm sure I'm no exception. But that doesn't mean we don't get a chance to change things, right?" Lily felt a lump form in her throat. There was something about Clint's words that struck a chord deep within her. Maybe, just maybe, she had underestimated him. Or maybe, the world wasn't as simple as she had once thought. As the night wore on, Lily couldn't shake the feeling of disbelief that had settled over her. Clint Eastwood, the man she had mocked just hours ago, had not only forgiven her but had offered words of encouragement. He hadn't walked away in anger, nor had he made a scene. Instead, he had done something unexpected. He had extended an olive branch, a gesture that left her speechless and, to be honest, a little awestruck. She couldn't help but replay the encounter in her head as she continued working her shift. The other wait staff had noticed her interaction with Clint, and whispers began circulating, though no one dared to approach her directly about it. Jenna had given her a knowing look when she came back to the kitchen, but she didn't press. It was as if she understood that Lily needed time to process. What struck Lily the most, though, was what Clint had said about change. About people like her, the ones who were passionate and outspoken, even when the world didn't always want to hear it. She had always believed that her voice mattered, but this encounter, this unexpected connection with Clint, made her feel as though it truly could. "Change," she whispered under her breath as she passed by another table. The word was haunting her now, echoing in her mind. By the time her shift was over, Lily felt emotionally exhausted. She had served countless customers that night, but no one left quite as big an impression as Clint. As she clocked out and stepped out into the cool night air, she found herself standing at a crossroads. She had come to LA seeking something more, something that would make her feel as though her voice mattered, but could this be it? Was this encounter with Clint Eastwood the sign she had been waiting for? "Lily!" A voice called out from behind her, and she turned to see Jenna hurrying toward her, holding her jacket over her arm. "You okay? You looked lost in thought back there." Lily smiled weakly. "Yeah, I'm just processing everything. It's been a strange night." Jenna raised an eyebrow. "I can imagine. So, Clint. What happened?" Lily sighed, leaning against the cool brick wall of the restaurant. "He wasn't mad. Not at all. In fact, he was surprisingly cool about it. He actually said that I was different because I didn't recognize him. And then, he told me that people like me, people who fight for what they believe in, are the ones who make real change." Jenna's expression softened. "Wow. That's pretty deep, especially coming from him. You didn't just apologize, you actually got some advice from Clint Eastwood." "I know," Lily said, her voice trailing off. "It's crazy. It's like, he saw something in me I didn't even see in myself. I've always thought I'd be able to make a difference in the world, but I never imagined it would be in a way like this. I mean, look at me. I'm a waitress in a fancy restaurant, barely making ends meet, fighting for social justice on social media. But Clint, he really made me think. Jenna crossed her arms, leaning in to listen intently. What do you mean? I mean, Lily continued, her voice growing more confident with each word, maybe I've been looking at it all wrong. I've been so focused on making this big, grand change, something huge that would get everyone's attention. But maybe it's not about that. Maybe it's about the small, unexpected moments, the ones where you least expect it. Jenna smiled, nodding slowly. I get it now. You're thinking bigger than just running your mouth online. You're thinking about making a difference, even if it starts with just one person, or one conversation. Lily grinned. Exactly. Maybe my voice has more power than I thought. Maybe I've been so focused on criticizing the system that I've forgotten I can be a part of changing it. Looks like Clint Eastwood just gave you a new perspective, Jenna said, raising an eyebrow. Who would have thought? Lily laughed softly. Not me. But you know what? It's funny, when I walked into this place tonight, I thought I was just going to do my job, get through the night, and go home. But now I feel like something's shifted. Like maybe it's time for me to stop waiting for some big break and start making things happen on my own. Jenna gave her a knowing look. I think that's a good plan. But, let's not forget, you're still working at La Mirage, and Clint Eastwood didn't just make you a millionaire. If you're gonna change the world, you still need to make a living. Lily rolled her eyes. Trust me, I haven't forgotten that part. They both laughed, the tension of the night fading away in the comfort of their shared understanding. As Lily walked to her car, her mind continued to race. The conversation with Clint Eastwood had felt like a turning point, a moment where something deep within her had clicked. It wasn't just about making a splash or demanding attention, it was about finding her place in the world, even if it wasn't glamorous, and using her voice to make a difference in whatever way she could. But that feeling of hope didn't last long. As she pulled onto the freeway, her phone buzzed with a new notification, a message from a friend who worked in a similar circle. The message was short, but the implications were enough to make her stomach drop. I heard Clint Eastwood just bought La Mirage. You might want to look into this. Lily's heart raced as she read the message again, trying to make sense of it. Could it be true? Could Clint, after their brief interaction, actually buy the restaurant? The place that had been her world, the place she had criticized time and time again, now might be under the ownership of the very person she had mocked. What did that mean for her? Her mind buzzed with questions, and she couldn't shake the feeling that this story was far from over. The night had begun with a mistake, but somehow, it felt like it was leading to something much bigger than she could have ever imagined. Lily didn't know where this was going, but one thing was certain, her life was about to change. Again. Lily sat in her car, the engine humming as she stared blankly at the text message on her phone. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Clint Eastwood. The man she had just apologized to hours earlier. The man who had forgiven her, offering her wisdom and encouragement. And now, according to this message, he had bought La Mirage, the restaurant where she worked. Her mind raced. Was this some kind of joke? A misunderstanding? Or was it real? Why would he buy a place like this? Lily thought. She had always known the restaurant was struggling, but Clint Eastwood, a Hollywood legend, getting involved with a failing luxury diner? It didn't make sense. But then again, nothing about this night made sense. First, she insulted a legend, then he forgave her in a way that left her speechless. Now, the restaurant itself was potentially under his control. Her phone buzzed again, a second message from the same friend, it's legit. Word's already out. There's a meeting scheduled with the staff tomorrow morning. You might want to be there. Lily's stomach churned as she processed the information. She had barely slept a wink, her mind still whirling from the events of the previous night. How was she supposed to face Clint now? And more importantly, what did his purchase of the restaurant mean for her future? As she pulled into the parking lot of La Mirage the next morning, she noticed a distinct change in the atmosphere. A hush seemed to hang over the place, the kind of stillness that comes before a storm. The employees trickled in one by one, some of them looking just as confused and anxious as Lily felt. Lily entered the staff entrance and found Jenna already in the break room, her face etched with worry. "Hey," Jenna greeted, her voice low. "I just heard the news. Is it true? Did Clint actually buy the place?" "I don't know yet," Lily replied, shaking her head. "But I'm about to find out." Just as she finished speaking, the manager, Tony, walked into the room. His face was ashen, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. He cleared his throat, silencing the murmurs from the staff. "I know you're all wondering what's going on," Tony began, his voice tight. "I just got off the phone with Clint Eastwood's people. The rumors are true. He's not just a regular customer. He's the new owner of La Mirage." Gasps filled the room, and Lily's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just a PR stunt. It was happening. Clint Eastwood, her former target of ridicule, had bought the restaurant. The implications were too vast to comprehend. Tony continued, his face grim. "Look, I don't know what this means for all of us yet. There's a meeting scheduled for later this morning. But I need you to be prepared. I don't know if this will mean layoffs, a change in management, or something else entirely. Just, keep your heads on straight and stay calm." Lily felt a sinking sensation in her stomach. This was more than just an awkward run-in. It was a turning point. Clint Eastwood had gone from an untouchable celebrity to a very real, very powerful presence in her life. The restaurant she worked at, the place she had criticized, was now his. And she, the waitress who had mocked him, was about to face the consequences, or perhaps something even more unpredictable. An hour later, the staff gathered in the main dining area, the tension palpable as everyone waited for Clint's arrival. Lily couldn't stop replaying her last conversation with him. Could he possibly remember her? What would he say when he saw her again? She felt her pulse quicken, and she couldn't decide whether she was nervous, excited, or both. Finally, the doors to the dining room opened, and a hush fell over the group. Clint Eastwood, dressed in a sharp suit that fit him perfectly, walked in with his usual calm demeanor. But this time, he wasn't just a celebrity walking through the door, he was the owner. His presence commanded the room, and everyone straightened up in anticipation. "Good morning, everyone," Clint said, his voice gravelly but warm. "I know there's been a lot of talk, and I'm here to address it. But first, I want to say something to all of you." He paused, his piercing gaze sweeping across the staff. "I'm not here to change everything overnight. I didn't buy La Mirage because I want to tear it down or throw you all out. I bought this place because I see potential in it. I see a team of people who care about what they do, and I think we can take this place to the next level. But that requires honesty, trust, and hard work." Lily could feel her chest tightening. She wasn't sure why, but she couldn't help but feel a little relieved. Clint wasn't here to tear them apart, he wanted to build something better. She had been so focused on the idea of him being a rich celebrity out to save his own image that she hadn't stopped to consider that he might actually want to make a difference. He took a deep breath, his eyes scanning the group once more before landing on Lily. She froze. He remembered. "There's one more thing," Clint continued, his voice softer now. "I know some of you have your reservations about me, and I understand. But I'm not just a guy who walks into places and buys them for the hell of it. I've been around long enough to know that people are everything. And this place, La Mirage, needs a fresh perspective. We need people who are willing to speak their minds, even when it's uncomfortable. People who don't just follow the rules but challenge them when the situation calls for it." Lily's heart pounded in her chest. Was he talking to her? Did he know? Was this a second chance, or was it just a coincidence that he'd chosen this moment to speak so directly? Clint smiled just slightly, a knowing look in his eyes. Lily, he said, his voice calm but carrying a weight of meaning. You've got guts. And I think that's exactly what this place needs. For a moment, everything seemed to slow down. The room was silent, everyone hanging on Clint's every word. Lily's mind was spinning, her thoughts scattered like leaves in the wind. Was this really happening? She nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. I didn't mean to offend you. But if I'm going to work for you, I'll give it my all. I promise. Clint gave her a small nod in return, his gaze not soft but appreciative. That's all I ask. The meeting continued, but Lily's mind had already gone elsewhere. The weight of what had just transpired was still settling in. A few hours ago, she had been standing at the precipice of a mistake, unsure of how it would impact her. Now, she was standing at the edge of something entirely new, and for the first time in a long while, she felt as though she had a real opportunity to shape her future. The days that followed Clint Eastwood's surprise acquisition of La Mirage were nothing short of a whirlwind. Every shift Lily worked was filled with tension and anticipation. The air in the restaurant seemed charged with an energy she couldn't quite place, like a storm was gathering just beneath the surface. The staff's reactions were a mixed bag, some were thrilled, others were cautiously optimistic, and a few were downright skeptical. But Lily? She felt a quiet sense of determination settle in her chest. The message Clint had sent during that first meeting, about people who dared to speak their minds and challenge the system, had taken root deep inside her. She found herself looking at La Mirage differently now. It wasn't just a luxury restaurant where she worked to make ends meet. It was a symbol, a place where change was not only possible but necessary. She had spent so much of her life railing against things she couldn't control, society, inequality, the system, and now, she had a chance to do something about it. And it all started with her. Her thoughts drifted back to Clint's words, people who are willing to speak their minds, even when it's uncomfortable. Those words echoed in her mind, filling her with a quiet confidence she hadn't known she was capable of. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was a part of something bigger. Something real. It wasn't easy, though. As the days passed, Clint made it clear he wasn't just interested in preserving the status quo. He wanted to shake things up. He brought in consultants, revamped the menu, and most importantly, started listening to the staff, asking them for their thoughts on what could be improved. He even made it a point to speak with Lily directly several times, each conversation more personal and insightful than the last. One afternoon, as she was preparing for another busy evening, Clint appeared in the kitchen. Lily was wiping down counters when he walked in, his usual air of calm confidence surrounding him like a shield. "Hey, Lily," he said, his voice as steady as always. "Got a minute?" She wiped her hands on her apron, her heart racing just slightly. "Of course. What's up?" "I wanted to talk to you about something," Clint said, leaning against the counter. "I've noticed how hard you work here. But I also know you've got something more in you. You're not the type of person who's content with just going through the motions. I think you could do more than wait tables here." Lily felt her stomach twist. "What do you mean?" Clint looked at her with a kind smile, but his eyes were sharp. "I'm offering you a chance. A chance to take on more responsibility, maybe even move up in the ranks. I've been impressed by your passion and your ideas. You've got the ability to lead, to inspire change, if that's what you want." Lily blinked, taken aback. Was this real? Was he really offering her a chance to move up? Just a few days ago, she had barely been able to keep her thoughts in check, mocking the man who now seemed determined to give her a shot at something bigger than herself. I don't know what to say," she stammered, unsure of how to respond. Was this a test? Was Clint really serious? Clint's smile widened. "You don't have to decide now. Take some time. But think about it, okay? I know you're capable of a lot more than you're giving yourself credit for." Lily nodded slowly, her mind reeling. She had spent years fighting for something meaningful, something bigger than herself. But never, in her wildest dreams, had she thought that opportunity would come from a luxury restaurant and a Hollywood legend. The next few days were filled with reflection. She thought about what Clint had said. She thought about her life, the things she'd fought for, the things she wanted to change. And most importantly, she thought about herself. Was she ready to take that leap? To become more than just a waitress, to step into a role where she could actually make a difference? By the end of the week, Lily had her answer. She wasn't going to let this opportunity slip by. She had always believed in the power of change, but now, she realized that change had to start with her. If she wanted to be a part of something bigger, she had to stop waiting for the world to give her permission. She had to make her own path. She walked into the restaurant the next day with a newfound resolve, her steps purposeful as she approached Clint in his office. "Clint," she said, her voice steady but filled with conviction, "I've thought about what you said. And I'm ready. I want to take on more responsibility. I want to be a part of what you're building here. I want to help make La Mirage something more than just a fancy restaurant. I want to make it a place where people can really see what we're about." Clint looked up from his papers, a glimmer of pride in his eyes. "I'm glad to hear that, Lily. You've got the drive and the heart. Let's make it happen." And just like that, her journey had come full circle. The same woman who had mocked Clint Eastwood in a moment of frustration had now stepped into a role where she could make a real impact. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was a leader in the making. Over the next several months, Lily threw herself into her work, pouring her heart into every task Clint gave her. She worked tirelessly to implement new ideas for the restaurant, pushing for changes that would not only improve the customer experience but also create a more inclusive, welcoming atmosphere for the staff. Clint was always supportive, offering guidance when needed but also giving her the freedom to lead in her own way. It wasn't always easy, but Lily had never been one to shy away from a challenge. As La Mirage began to transform, so did she. The young woman who had once felt lost and out of place was now standing tall, confident in her ability to create change. And as the restaurant's success grew, so did her sense of purpose. She had found a place where her voice mattered, where her actions could make a difference. But perhaps more importantly, she had found a new understanding of herself, one that was no longer defined by the opinions of others or the mistakes of her past. In the end, Lily learned that change didn't always come in the form of grand gestures or radical overhauls. Sometimes, it came from the quiet decisions to embrace new opportunities, to step up when the time was right, and to trust that even the most unexpected encounters could lead to something extraordinary. As for Clint Eastwood, he remained a quiet but constant presence in her life, a reminder that sometimes, the most unlikely people could inspire the greatest transformations. And as Lily looked out over the bustling restaurant one evening, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be, making a difference, one small step at a time. The days turned into weeks, and the changes at La Mirage started to take hold. Lily had stepped up, taking on more responsibilities and leadership roles. She wasn't just executing Clint's vision, she was shaping it. There was a palpable shift in the atmosphere. The staff were more motivated, the customers were coming in with renewed interest, and even the menu had taken on a fresher, bolder direction. But with all of this success, there was a sense of unease still lingering in the background. The restaurant was on the rise, but that didn't mean the road ahead would be smooth. Lily knew it wasn't going to be all victories and celebrations. She'd seen firsthand how fragile success could be in the business world. And though Clint had given her the opportunity to make a difference, she wasn't naive enough to think that there wouldn't be obstacles along the way. It was a Wednesday afternoon when she received a call from Clint's assistant. He wanted to see her. Her heart raced. Was this a good thing? Had something gone wrong? She had just completed a new marketing campaign that was starting to show promise. Was he pleased with it, or was he preparing to dismantle it? She arrived at Clint's office later that afternoon, the weight of uncertainty hanging heavy on her shoulders. She knocked on the door and entered, greeted by the sight of Clint sitting behind his desk, a glass of water in front of him, his usual cool demeanor intact. "Lily," he greeted with a nod. "Please, sit down." She took a seat, her palms slightly sweaty, as she awaited his words. The air between them felt heavier than usual, and the silence stretched on for a moment before Clint finally spoke. "I wanted to talk to you about something," he began. "There's a new opportunity coming up, but it's going to require all of your focus. I'm considering opening another location of La Mirage in a neighboring city, and I want you to lead it." Lily's breath caught in her throat. A new location. The thought of expanding so quickly was both exhilarating and terrifying. She had only just begun to find her rhythm at the original restaurant. Was she ready for this kind of responsibility? Clint studied her face, sensing her hesitation. "I know this is a big step," he continued. "But I've seen how you've grown. I believe you can take on this challenge." Lily felt the weight of his words. She had fought for this, for a chance to prove herself, and now it was being handed to her. It was everything she had dreamed of, but it also brought with it a new set of doubts. Could she replicate her success here? Could she keep up with the pressure of opening a new restaurant and ensuring its success? "Clint," she said slowly, choosing her words carefully, "I'm honored that you would trust me with this. But I'm not sure I'm ready to take on a whole new location just yet. There's so much to consider, the staff, the culture, the marketing, it's a huge leap." He leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. "I understand the concern. It's a big responsibility, but I wouldn't be offering it to you if I didn't think you could handle it. You've already shown me that you're capable of more than you realize. And this is your chance to really make an impact. To show the world that what you're building here is more than just one restaurant, it's a movement." Her pulse quickened. A movement. That word hung in the air like a promise. She had never thought of herself as someone who could lead such an endeavor, but the idea of creating something bigger than herself was incredibly compelling. "I'll think about it," she said, trying to maintain composure, even as her mind raced with possibilities. Clint gave her a small, reassuring smile. "Take your time. Just know that I believe in you, and I'm here to support you." As Lily left his office, she felt the weight of his words settle deep within her. The chance to open a second location of La Mirage was an opportunity she had only ever dreamed of. But with it came the realization that she would be walking a fine line between success and failure, with every decision she made. This wasn't just a restaurant, it was the future of everything she had worked for. For the next few days, Lily couldn't shake the idea from her mind. She had gone from mocking Clint Eastwood in a moment of ignorance to now standing at the threshold of a career-defining moment. Everything had changed so quickly, and she knew that nothing would ever be the same again. She was no longer the girl who served drinks to wealthy patrons, she was someone who had the power to shape the future. That night, after the dinner rush, Lily sat down at the bar with a glass of wine, staring at the empty restaurant. She thought about everything that had brought her to this point, her childhood, her struggles, her mistakes, and she realized that all of it had led her here. She wasn't just capable of handling this challenge, she was meant for it. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but it was hers. And for the first time, Lily felt truly ready for what was to come. The next morning, she returned to Clint's office with a renewed sense of purpose. "I'm in," she said, her voice steady and confident. "I'm ready to take on the new location." Clint smiled, a gleam of approval in his eyes. "I knew you would be. Let's get to work." As the days passed, the momentum grew, and La Mirage became more than just a place to eat. It became a symbol of what could happen when people dared to challenge the status quo, when they pushed past their fears and doubts to create something truly extraordinary. And through it all, Lily knew one thing for certain, this was just the beginning. The road ahead was filled with uncertainty, but she was ready to face it head-on. No longer a waitress, she was now the architect of her own future, ready to build something that would leave a lasting legacy. Lily stood in a newly acquired building, now home to La Mirage's second location. The space was large, open, and almost too perfect, but also intimidating in its vast emptiness. It needed life, it needed a pulse. And she was here to breathe that life into it. The journey to get here hadn't been easy. There were months of planning, meetings with architects, contractors, and vendors, late nights poring over design concepts, staffing decisions, and even a few sleepless hours trying to figure out how she could make this new location as successful as the original. It had all come down to this moment, when the doors would open to the public, and the real test would begin. As she stood there, watching the construction workers finish the last touches, Lily's mind raced. Could she really pull this off? Could she replicate the magic of the first La Mirage in this new, uncharted territory? The stakes were higher now. This was no longer just about her own career or Clint's vision, it was about the future of the business, the people who would be working here, and the customers who would walk through those doors looking for something extraordinary. She was so caught up in her thoughts that she didn't notice Clint enter until he called her name. Lily. She turned, startled, and smiled. Clint. I didn't see you there. He gave her a knowing look, one that seemed to say he had seen all the uncertainty in her eyes, but was too polite to point it out. I know this place looks like a construction site right now, but it's going to come together. You've got the vision. I can see that. She nodded, trying to steady herself. Clint's confidence in her had always been a source of strength, but now, standing in the middle of this new space, she wondered if she could live up to it. I hope you're right, she said quietly, glancing around at the bare walls and the unfinished details. It's a lot to handle, Clint. Clint walked over to her, placing a hand on her shoulder. I've seen you handle more. This is just the next step. And you're ready. Trust me. His words, though simple, had a weight to them that made her feel a little lighter. She needed that reassurance. Because deep down, she knew Clint believed in her. And maybe, just maybe, that belief was the push she needed to believe in herself. The grand opening was just a few days away, and the excitement was palpable. Staff training had been intense, but Lily knew that the real test would come once the doors opened to the public. There were a million details to keep track of, menu changes, guest services, the hiring of new staff, but one thing was clear, this was her moment to show that she could not only replicate the success of the original La Mirage but also build something even better. As the days ticked down, Lily found herself returning to the restaurant late at night, walking through the space when no one else was around. She would inspect every inch, imagining the flow of people, the sounds, the smells, the energy that would fill the place once it was alive with guests. Every step felt like a rehearsal for the real thing. The night before the grand opening, Clint invited Lily to dinner at the original La Mirage to discuss the final details. They sat at the bar, their glasses of wine reflecting the soft glow of the ambient lighting. Tomorrow is the big day, Clint said, a quiet grin playing on his lips. How are you feeling? Lily paused, taking a sip of wine as she considered the question. There were nerves, certainly, but there was also a growing sense of anticipation. A sense of pride. I'm ready, she said, her voice steady. I've done everything I can to prepare, and now it's time to let it unfold. But, there's always a part of me that wonders if I'm really ready for what's coming. Clint raised an eyebrow. You know, Lily, everyone feels that way at some point. Even the most successful people. The key is that you take that fear and use it to drive you forward. You've already proven you can do this. Now you just have to trust yourself. Lily smiled, the weight of his words settling in her chest. It wasn't just about the restaurant, or the success that she was chasing. It was about believing in herself, even in the face of doubt. Clint had given her the tools, but now it was up to her to make it all work. The next morning, the staff arrived early for the grand opening. There was an energy in the air that was almost tangible. Everyone was excited, anxious, and ready to make their mark. Lily stood at the front, leading the team with a quiet confidence that had grown over the past few months. She moved through the space, checking in with each person, making sure everything was running smoothly. As the clock ticked down to opening, she felt her heart race in anticipation. And then, just like that, the doors opened. The guests began to arrive, each one greeted by the sleek, modern atmosphere of La Mirage's new location. The staff were on their toes, hustling to make every guest feel special, while the kitchen hummed with activity. Lily moved through the space, overseeing everything, making sure each detail was perfect. It was hectic, overwhelming, and thrilling all at once. But it was also exactly what she had dreamed of. As the night wore on, Lily couldn't help but watch Clint from across the room. He was seated at a table, observing everything with a quiet smile. He was proud of her, and she could feel it in the air. The grand opening was a success. The new La Mirage was just as vibrant and lively as the original. And as the night wound down and the last guests left, Lily allowed herself a moment to breathe. She had done it. She had taken the leap, and it had paid off. "I told you you were ready," Clint said, appearing beside her as she surveyed the restaurant, now quiet and empty. Lily turned to him, a smile tugging at her lips. "I couldn't have done it without you." Clint chuckled, his eyes twinkling. "You did all the hard work. I just gave you the opportunity." As the night ended and the staff began to pack up, Lily stood in the center of the room, the weight of the moment sinking in. She had made it. She had proven to herself that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. But this was only the beginning. The road ahead was still uncertain, but one thing was clear: Lily had found her place. And as long as she kept trusting in herself, there was no limit to what she could accomplish. It had been a month since the grand opening of the second La Mirage, and business was thriving. The new location was bustling, drawing in guests from all over the city. Word had spread, and the once empty space was now filled with laughter, conversation, and the clinking of wine glasses. The team was solid, the food was exceptional, and Lily had found her groove. Everything seemed to be falling into place, but there was a nagging feeling she couldn't shake, a sense that success, as sweet as it was, often came with a price. The first few weeks had been a whirlwind. The kitchen was firing on all cylinders, the bar was mixing up craft cocktails that had become the talk of the town, and the service was impeccable. But the pressure to maintain this level of excellence was starting to weigh on Lily. She wasn't just managing the new location, she was overseeing everything. The original La Mirage was still her baby, and Clint had left her in charge of ensuring its continued success as well. The late nights, endless meetings, and constant balancing act were beginning to take a toll. One evening, as she walked through the restaurant, checking on guests and making sure everything was running smoothly, she caught a glimpse of herself in the reflection of the glass door. The woman staring back at her looked different, tired, worn down, and slightly out of touch with the energetic person who had started this journey months ago. The weight of her responsibilities was evident in the dark circles under her eyes, the tightness in her posture, and the way she moved mechanically, as though on autopilot. But there was no time to dwell on it. Not tonight. There were still guests to be taken care of, a kitchen to oversee, and decisions to make. She took a deep breath and pushed the feeling aside. Later that evening, after the last customer had left, Lily sat at the bar with Clint, the two of them discussing the future of La Mirage. Clint was, as always, full of ideas and plans, his mind racing with possibilities for the brand's next steps. He was excited about the direction things were going and eager to talk about expanding even further. "You're doing great, Lily," Clint said, taking a sip of his drink. "This second location has exceeded my expectations. We're really onto something here." Lily smiled weakly, though she didn't feel quite as confident. "I'm glad it's working out, Clint. But I've been feeling a little overwhelmed lately. There's just so much to manage, and I'm not sure how much longer I can keep up this pace." Clint raised an eyebrow, setting his drink down. Overwhelmed? I thought you thrived under pressure. I do, she replied quickly, before adding, but I don't want to burn out, either. I need to find a balance, or this whole thing will start to fall apart. Clint studied her carefully, his expression shifting from concern to understanding. You know, Lily, success always comes with a price. But you're not alone in this. You've got a great team, and you don't have to carry the weight of it all yourself. Lily took a deep breath. I just feel like I'm juggling too many things. I don't want to let anyone down, especially you. I don't want to disappoint you after everything you've done for me. Clint gave her a reassuring smile. You won't disappoint me. In fact, you've already exceeded my expectations. But I want you to remember something, Lily. You're not just a part of this restaurant. You're part of something bigger, a team that's here to support you. Lean on them when you need to. Don't try to do everything alone. For the first time in a long while, Lily felt the weight of her responsibilities shift ever so slightly. Maybe it was time to delegate more. Maybe it was time to trust her team even more. She couldn't carry it all on her own, and perhaps she didn't have to. The next day, Lily called a meeting with her key staff members. It was time to make a change. They gathered in the back office, the atmosphere serious but hopeful as they sat around the table. Lily looked at each of them, her manager, the head chef, the bar manager, and a few others, and cleared her throat. I've been thinking a lot about how things have been going, she began. We've had incredible success, but I've realized that I've been trying to do too much myself. And it's taking a toll on me. So, I need to ask for your help. I need to start trusting all of you more and allowing you to take on more responsibility. The team exchanged glances, some nodding while others looked a bit surprised. Lily, we've got your back, said the head chef, a man named Sam who had been with La Mirage since the very beginning. We've always been a team, and we can handle things. You don't have to carry the load alone. Lily smiled, grateful for their support. I know that now. But I also want to make sure you all have the space to grow. We've got a good thing going here, and I don't want to risk burning out. I need you to help me keep this thing running, just like you've been doing from the start. The team agreed to take on more, with everyone feeling more invested in the success of the restaurant. The meeting ended on a positive note, and Lily felt a weight lifted off her shoulders. She wasn't alone in this anymore. As the days passed, Lily began to adjust to her new role, stepping back just a bit and allowing her team to take on more responsibilities. It wasn't easy to let go of control, but it was necessary. She found herself with more time to focus on the bigger picture, marketing, long-term strategy, and the creative side of the business that had sparked her initial passion. The more she trusted her team, the more they thrived, and the restaurant seemed to run even more smoothly. But just as Lily was beginning to find her rhythm, a new challenge emerged. A competitor had opened a restaurant across town that was gaining popularity at an alarming rate. The reviews were glowing, the buzz was spreading quickly, and Lily knew it was only a matter of time before it started affecting La Mirage. Clint called her into his office one afternoon to discuss the competition. He had seen the reviews, heard the whispers, and was already formulating a plan. They're good, Clint said, his voice serious. But they won't be a threat if we step up our game. I want you to think about what we can do differently. Something bold, something exciting. We can't afford to get complacent. Lily nodded, the pressure mounting once again. The restaurant had already come so far, but now there was a new challenge to face. The question was, could they keep their momentum going? Lily sat in the office, staring at the glowing screen of her laptop. The competitor's restaurant had made a name for itself quickly, with critics praising its innovative dishes, unique ambience, and cutting-edge marketing strategies. Every day, Lily checked the reviews, seeing the numbers climb, the praise flowing in, and the buzz that seemed to sweep through the city. The pressure was mounting. She had spent months building La Mirage into the hot spot it had become, and now, suddenly, a new challenger was threatening to steal the spotlight. Clint had told her not to worry. Success breeds competition, he had said with his usual calm demeanor. But Lily couldn't shake the feeling that things were slipping through her fingers. Sighing, she closed her laptop and leaned back in her chair. She had never been one to back down from a challenge. But this time felt different. This time, the threat wasn't just another rival, it was a sign that they were entering uncharted territory. The food industry was evolving faster than she could keep up, and she had to figure out how La Mirage could stay ahead of the curve. That evening, after the last guests had left, Lily gathered her key staff members for an impromptu meeting. They needed a plan. The restaurant couldn't just sit back and wait for the competition to pass. They had to adapt, evolve, and give their patrons a reason to keep coming back. "I've been thinking a lot about the competition," Lily began, standing at the front of the meeting room. "They're good. Really good. But I believe La Mirage can be better." The team nodded, eager to hear what she had in mind. Lily had always inspired them with her bold ideas and fearless attitude. They trusted her judgment, and now it was time to put that trust into action. "We need to stand out. We need something that no one else has. It's not just about great food anymore. It's about creating an experience, a unique, unforgettable experience that makes people choose us over anyone else," Lily continued, her voice gaining confidence as she spoke. "We have the talent, we have the passion, and we have the resources. It's time to take risks." There was a brief silence as the team considered her words. Then, Sam, the head chef, raised his hand. "I've been to their place," he said, his tone thoughtful. "It's trendy, yes, but it doesn't have heart. The food is technically perfect, but it lacks soul. We can do better. We have the ability to not just make food that's good, but food that tells a story." Lily smiled. She knew Sam understood what she was getting at. It wasn't about following trends, it was about setting them. And they had a story to tell. "I love that idea," Lily said. "Food with soul. Let's make it personal. Let's dig into the roots of La Mirage and show people who we are, why we're different. Let's bring our story into the food, the service, the atmosphere. Everything." As the meeting continued, the team brainstormed ideas. They discussed menu changes, new seasonal offerings, and ways to create more interactive dining experiences for guests. The concept of story-driven dining became the heart of the plan. Each dish would be more than just food, it would be an experience, a narrative that connected with guests on a deeper level. By the end of the night, they had a rough outline of what their new strategy would look like. There was excitement in the room. They had a clear direction, and it was time to bring it to life. Over the next few weeks, La Mirage underwent a transformation. The menu was revamped to focus on locally sourced, sustainable ingredients, each dish carefully crafted to tell a story. The new concept was inspired by the team's shared experiences, childhood memories, and the places they had visited that shaped their culinary journeys. Sam worked with his kitchen crew to create unique dishes that were bold yet familiar, complex yet comforting. They introduced a chef's table experience where guests could sit in the kitchen and watch the culinary team prepare their meal, learning about the inspiration behind each dish. They added interactive elements to the menu, like wine pairings chosen based on guests' moods or stories, and a surprise tasting menu that changed every night, ensuring no two visits were the same. Lily also focused on the restaurant's ambience. The decor was subtly updated to reflect the theme of storytelling, with elements of warmth and intimacy woven throughout the space. They added personal touches to each corner, photographs of the staff's travels, old family recipes framed on the walls, and small details that made La Mirage feel like a place where guests could truly connect with the heart of the restaurant. Clint was thrilled with the new direction. He saw potential for La Mirage to stand out even more, not just as a restaurant but as a destination. But Lily knew that this wouldn't be enough to fend off the competition. They needed to get the word out fast. She worked with the marketing team to launch a targeted campaign that showcased their new concept. They used social media to give followers a sneak peek into the behind-the-scenes process, sharing videos of Sam creating the new dishes, and stories of how the restaurant's team had come together to create the fresh experience. They encouraged guests to share their own stories, using the hashtag #StoryThroughFood to create a sense of community and engagement. It was risky. They were stepping away from what had worked so far. But if they didn't take risks, they would be left behind. The night of the launch event arrived. The restaurant was packed, more packed than it had been in weeks. Guests were buzzing with excitement, eager to try the new menu, experience the chef's table, and learn about the story behind La Mirage's latest transformation. Lily stood in the corner of the restaurant, watching everything unfold. She felt a rush of adrenaline as she saw the guests react to the new concept. The wine pairings, the storytelling behind each dish, it was exactly what they needed. The atmosphere was electric, and for the first time in a while, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. She had done it. She had stepped up and created something truly special. Later in the evening, as the last of the guests filtered out, Clint approached her, his face lit up with approval. "You did it, Lily," he said, clapping her on the back. "You made this place even better than before. You've given them something they can't get anywhere else." Lily smiled, her exhaustion giving way to a sense of accomplishment. "We did it, Clint. We're back on top." As the team celebrated their success, Lily knew that this battle wasn't over. The competition was still fierce, and there would be other challenges ahead. But for now, they had won. And in the world of restaurants, that was something worth celebrating. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one risk you've taken that changed everything for you? Lily sat in her office, sipping her coffee as the morning sunlight streamed through the large windows of La Mirage. It had been a few weeks since the restaurant's relaunch, and things were looking up. The changes had made an impact, reservations were at an all-time high, the guests were raving about the new concept, and the competition had quieted down. It seemed like all the hard work had paid off, and Lily allowed herself a rare moment of relief. But as she reviewed the sales reports and social media engagement metrics, something felt off. A subtle unease gnawed at her. The restaurant was flourishing, yes, but Lily couldn't shake the feeling that the calm was temporary. She had been here before, on top of the world, only to watch it all slip away in the blink of an eye. And deep down, she knew the city's food scene was fickle. Trends came and went faster than she could keep up. As if on cue, the door to her office swung open. It was Clint, his expression unreadable. "Lily," he began, his voice firm, "I need to talk to you about something important." Lily set her coffee down, her heart rate quickening. She had known Clint long enough to sense when something was wrong. His usual confident, laid-back demeanor was nowhere to be found. "What's going on?" she asked, leaning forward in her chair. Clint hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I just got off the phone with a potential investor. Someone with deep pockets, someone who could take La Mirage to the next level." Lily's curiosity piqued, but a slight tinge of skepticism followed. She had heard these types of offers before, promises of big money, quick success, and grand expansions that often came with strings attached. She didn't want to be swept up in another risky proposition that could jeopardize everything they had worked so hard to build. "Investor? Are they interested in more locations?" Lily asked cautiously. Clint nodded. "They're interested in La Mirage as a whole. They're looking for a partnership that would give them a controlling share. They'd help with marketing, with scaling the brand, with opening more locations across the country." Lily's stomach dropped. She had always believed in growing La Mirage slowly, intentionally, ensuring that every location felt like an extension of the original. The idea of handing over control, of someone else steering the ship, didn't sit well with her. "I don't know about this, Clint," she said, shaking her head. I want to keep our identity intact. I don't want to lose the soul of Le Mirage just because we want to expand quickly. Clint looked at her with a knowing gaze. I get it, Lily. I do. But think about where we are. This restaurant is on fire right now. We've got the momentum. If we don't take this opportunity, someone else will. The competition is already out there, and if we don't scale, we risk becoming irrelevant. Lily's mind raced. Was this the right move? Could she trust an investor to keep the spirit of Le Mirage alive, or would they push for quick profits, cutting corners and compromising quality? She didn't know, but she couldn't ignore the growing fear in her chest. Just then, her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. She picked it up and saw a message from Sam, the head chef. Something's wrong in the kitchen. Need you in here ASAP. Lily's heart skipped a beat. She excused herself from Clint, telling him she'd need to think things over and would get back to him later. Her mind was already racing in 1,000 directions as she rushed to the kitchen. When Lily arrived in the kitchen, she was met by a flurry of activity. Sam, usually calm under pressure, looked visibly agitated as he wiped his hands on his apron. Sam, what's going on? Lily asked, her tone sharp. He looked at her with a mix of frustration and concern. We're having a major issue with one of our suppliers. They've sent us subpar ingredients for the last few orders, and now we're getting complaints about the quality of the food. Lily's mind immediately went to the big picture. If word got out that Le Mirage was serving anything less than perfect food, the reputation they had built so carefully would come crashing down. She had worked too hard to let something like this ruin everything. Do you think it's just a one-time issue? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Sam shook his head. I don't think so. The problem seems ongoing. And the last thing we need is a social media backlash over bad food. We need to fix this, fast. Lily felt a wave of panic wash over her. The last thing she needed right now was a scandal. They had worked so hard to rebuild Le Mirage's reputation, and a slip-up like this could undo everything. But she knew what had to be done. I'll call the supplier, she said decisively. We'll sort this out. Make sure the kitchen is running as usual, and keep a close eye on the quality of the ingredients. We can't afford any more mistakes. The call to the supplier did not go well. After several attempts to get them on the line, Lily finally spoke to a representative who was less than helpful. We're aware of the issue, the representative said dismissively. But our hands are tied. We've had a shortage in our supply chain, and quality is taking a hit. There's nothing we can do about it right now. Lily's frustration boiled over. This isn't acceptable. We have a reputation to uphold, and I won't let you ruin that because of your internal problems. You either fix this or we'll find another supplier. The representative was silent for a moment. I'll pass your complaint along to management, but like I said, we can't guarantee anything. That was it. Lily hung up the phone, fuming. This wasn't just a business issue, it was a personal one. Le Mirage was her creation, her baby. She wasn't about to let some supply chain issue or an investor with different priorities take it all away from her. As the days went by, Lily continued to juggle the investor proposal, the kitchen issues, and the overwhelming pressure of maintaining the restaurant's success. She had barely slept in days, and the weight of her decisions was beginning to take its toll. She knew she couldn't handle everything on her own, but every time she tried to lean on someone else, something new seemed to go wrong. By the time Clint called again, her patience had worn thin. Lily, I've been thinking, he said, his voice laced with concern. Maybe it's time to bring in some outside help. A consultant or someone who can help us scale without losing our identity. Lily sat down, her hand trembling as she held the phone. I don't know, Clint. Everything feels like it's slipping away. I don't know if I can trust anyone else to keep Le Mirage what it is. What if we lose everything we've worked for? Clint's tone softened. We won't lose it. We'll make sure of that. But you don't have to carry this burden alone. Let's figure this out together. Lily closed her eyes, feeling the weight of it all crashing down. She had spent so much time fighting for this dream, but now the reality of what it took to keep it alive was becoming more complicated than she could have ever imagined. The days that followed were a blur of stress, uncertainty, and constant decisions. Lily felt like she was running on fumes. She had always been the one to handle the tough situations, the one to come up with solutions when everything seemed to fall apart. But now, even she was struggling to hold it all together. Each day, the pressure mounted. The kitchen's issues persisted, the investor kept calling, asking for answers, and the critics, while still praising the restaurant, were starting to raise their expectations even higher. For the first time in a long time, Lily felt like she was drowning in the very thing she had worked so hard to build. It didn't help that Clint's calls were becoming more frequent, his voice more insistent. He was still pushing for the investor deal, trying to convince Lily that this was the right time to scale La Mirage and take it to new heights. But Lily couldn't shake the feeling that it would change everything, maybe not for the better. Sitting in her office late one evening, the weight of it all crashed down on her. She had just finished reviewing another round of angry emails from dissatisfied customers about the quality of the food, and her frustration boiled over. The kitchen had run out of one key ingredient again, and Sam had been forced to make last-minute substitutions, compromising the integrity of the dishes. Lily slammed her fist on the desk, feeling the burn of tears in her eyes. She had tried to do everything right. She had tried to stay true to the original vision of La Mirage, but now it felt like nothing was working. The restaurant's once thriving reputation was starting to fray at the edges, and with each mistake, she felt like she was losing her grip on it all. That's when the door to her office opened, and Sam stepped in. His face was grim, and Lily knew immediately something had gone wrong. "What's happened?" she asked, her voice tight with tension. Sam sighed, running a hand through his hair. "We've got another problem. The supplier is out of stock on the main ingredient for tonight's special. And without it, we can't offer it to the guests." Lily's heart sank. "That's the third time this week." Sam nodded. "I don't know what to tell you, Lily. This can't go on. If we keep running into these issues, the quality of the food is going to keep slipping. And when that happens, people will notice. The reviews will start to get worse." Lily ran a hand through her hair, trying to calm herself. "I know. I don't know what to do anymore." Sam hesitated before speaking again. "Lily, maybe it's time to stop and take a step back. You don't have to keep doing this alone. We're all here for you. But we need to make some decisions about the direction of La Mirage. We can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's falling apart behind the scenes." Lily's chest tightened. She had always prided herself on being the one who could handle everything. But now, the weight of it all was too much. She felt like she was on the edge, ready to break. "I can't let go of this," she whispered. "I built this place. It's everything to me." "I know you did," Sam said softly. "But sometimes, letting go is the only way to keep it alive. We need to make sure we don't lose La Mirage in the process of trying to save it." Lily stood up from her desk, pacing back and forth in her office. She was too wired to sit still, her mind racing. The investor, the kitchen issues, the pressure to keep up with the competition, it was all too much. She felt like she was being torn in 1,000 different directions. Her phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from Clint. "I need a decision by tomorrow. This could be our big break." Lily stared at the message for a long moment, her mind torn. She knew Clint had her best interests at heart, but she also knew that accepting the deal meant giving up a part of what made La Mirage hers. Was she ready for that? Was she willing to risk everything she had worked for in exchange for a shot at something bigger? As if reading her mind, Sam spoke again. Lily, no matter what you decide, we're in this together. You've built something incredible here. But you have to decide what comes next. And sometimes, the hardest part isn't the decision itself, it's the fear of what comes after. Lily's heart pounded in her chest. She felt a deep sense of loss already. No matter what she decided, things would never be the same. If she took the deal, she might gain the resources to solve all of L'Amarage's problems, but she would lose control, the very essence of the restaurant she had poured so much into. If she turned it down, she risked everything. L'Amarage could lose momentum, and the competition might swallow them whole. But deep down, Lily knew there was one thing that mattered more than all the external pressures, the heart of L'Amarage. The decisions, the stress, the sacrifices, all of it had been for this. For the people who believed in her, for the team that had stuck by her through thick and thin, and for the guests who had become part of the L'Amarage family. This place wasn't just about food, it was about connection. It was about sharing stories, creating memories, and offering something meaningful in a world that too often lacked it. Lily stopped pacing and looked Sam in the eye. She felt a sense of clarity wash over her, the uncertainty clearing like fog lifting after a storm. Sam, she said, her voice firm, I know what I have to do. Sam raised an eyebrow. What's that? I'm not giving up L'Amarage to an investor, Lily said, her decision final. We'll find another way. We'll fix the kitchen issues, find new suppliers, and keep pushing forward. If we lose this fight, then at least we'll have lost on our own terms. Sam nodded, a look of relief on his face. I'm with you, Lily. We all are. That night, Lily sat in her office, making a list of everything that needed to be done. The restaurant wasn't perfect, and the road ahead wouldn't be easy. But for the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. No matter what came next, she knew she had made the right choice. As she looked out the window, the city lights twinkling in the distance, Lily smiled. She had a vision for L'Amarage, and she wasn't going to let anyone take it away from her, not now, not ever. The journey wasn't over. It was just beginning. Lily woke up early the next morning, determined to start fresh. The weight of the decision she'd made the night before still lingered in her chest, but it was a weight she now carried with purpose. She had chosen to take control of L'Amarage, to rebuild from the ground up, no matter the cost. She had rejected the investor's offer, and with it, the promise of easier solutions. But she knew this was the only way forward if she wanted to preserve the soul of her restaurant. It wasn't going to be easy. She had a million things to fix, and not all of them were going to be solved overnight. But for the first time in weeks, Lily felt like she had a clear direction. She was ready to tackle the challenges head-on. The first step was fixing the kitchen. Sam had already been working overtime, trying to resolve the issues with the subpar ingredients, but now it was time to take matters into her own hands. She had always been a hands-on manager, and now was no different. After a quick breakfast, Lily headed to L'Amarage. The sun was just beginning to rise, and the streets of the city were still relatively quiet. As she entered the restaurant, the familiar scent of fresh coffee and baking bread filled the air. It was a comforting feeling, a reminder of why she had fallen in love with the business in the first place. Morning, Lily. Sam greeted her as she walked into the kitchen. He looked a little more relaxed than he had the day before, a sign that things were starting to calm down. Morning, Sam. How's everything looking? Lily asked, rolling up her sleeves and preparing to dive in. It's getting better, Sam replied, his voice tinged with hope. I found a new supplier for the key ingredients. They're a little more expensive, but the quality is better. We're getting a fresh delivery this afternoon, and I think we're in the clear for tonight's service. Lily nodded, feeling a surge of relief. Good. Let's make sure we don't run into any more problems. I want tonight's service to go smoothly. As the day went on, Lily worked alongside Sam and the rest of the team, helping prep for the evening's dinner rush. She checked every ingredient that came through the door, making sure everything was up to par. She didn't leave anything to chance, not when so much was on the line. By the time the doors of La Mirage opened for dinner, Lily felt a sense of cautious optimism. The new ingredients were in, the kitchen was running smoothly, and the staff was on their toes, ready to deliver a flawless experience to every guest that walked through the door. The evening passed in a blur of activity. The dining room was full, the kitchen was buzzing with energy, and the guests were enjoying their meals. There were no complaints about the food quality, and the reviews were positive, exactly what Lily had hoped for. But as the night wore on, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was still off. She had made a bold decision, rejecting the investor's offer, but now the restaurant was relying on her and the team more than ever. If anything went wrong, it could all come crashing down. Around 9:30 p.m., Clint arrived at the restaurant, walking in like he owned the place. His usual easygoing smile was replaced by a more serious expression, and he made a beeline for Lily. "Hey," he said, pulling her aside in a quieter corner of the restaurant. "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday. About rejecting the investor deal." Lily felt a slight pang of guilt, but she held her ground. "I know what I'm doing, Clint. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I believe in La Mirage, in what we've built here. I'm not ready to give that up." Clint sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I get it. But I just want to make sure you're not being too hard on yourself. You've got a lot of pressure on you right now. Maybe you should take a step back, hire someone who can help you with the business side of things. You don't have to do it all alone." Lily felt the familiar twinge of pride. She had always been independent, always taken on the tough stuff without asking for help. But Clint was right, maybe it was time to admit she couldn't do everything herself. The weight of running the restaurant was taking its toll on her, and the last thing she wanted was to burn out. "I'm not doing this alone," Lily said slowly. "I've got the team here with me. And we're going to get through this. We just need to stay focused, stay true to what we're doing." Clint studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right, I'll drop it for now. But just remember, you've got people who care about you. Don't forget that." The next few weeks were a blur of hard work and constant adjustments. Lily knew she had to make some big changes if she wanted La Mirage to continue thriving, and there was no time to waste. The pressure from the competition was mounting, and the industry was changing fast. But Lily refused to let that dictate her decisions. She was determined to stay true to her vision. One of the first things Lily decided to do was invest in some new technology to help streamline the business side of things. She had never been tech-savvy, but the restaurant industry was evolving, and she couldn't afford to fall behind. She hired a consultant to help with the back-end systems, inventory management, reservations, and financial tracking, so that she could spend less time on the administrative tasks and more time focusing on the customer experience. At the same time, she began working more closely with her chefs and the front-of-house team to implement a new training program. She knew that consistency was key, every dish, every service had to be perfect, and the staff had to be equipped with the right skills to handle the pressure. She made sure to check in with everyone regularly, offering support and guidance where needed, but also pushing them to be the best they could be. The changes didn't happen overnight, and there were still moments when Lily felt like she was walking a tightrope, balancing between the vision she had for the restaurant and the reality of the challenges they faced. But with each passing day, things began to improve. The kitchen was running more efficiently, the food quality was consistent, and the guests kept coming back. And slowly, but surely, Lily started to feel a sense of control again. She wasn't just reacting to problems anymore, she was taking proactive steps to ensure the restaurant's long-term success. And, most importantly, she was doing it on her own terms. One afternoon, about a month after rejecting the investor deal, Lily sat down with Clint over coffee. She had just finished a meeting with her team, and the restaurant was running smoothly. For the first time in a long time, she felt confident about the future. "Clint," Lily said, I think I made the right choice. He raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I thought rejecting the investor's offer would be a mistake. But I've been able to breathe again. I've found my footing, and I know that La Mirage is on the right track. I'm not sure if I'd be able to say that if I'd taken the deal. Clint smiled, leaning back in his chair. I'm proud of you, Lily. You stuck to your guns. And look at how far you've come. Lily smiled, feeling a sense of gratitude for Clint's support. I couldn't have done it without the team. We all pulled together. As they continued talking, Lily realized that she had found something even more valuable than success, peace of mind. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be without its challenges, but for the first time in months, she felt ready to face them head-on. Lily woke up the next morning with a sense of cautious optimism. The past few weeks had been transformative. The restaurant was starting to run smoothly again, and while the challenges weren't over, there was a palpable sense of relief in the air. La Mirage was back on track, and the team felt more united than ever. The decisions she had made had given her the clarity and control she had desperately needed. But as with everything in the restaurant industry, peace was often temporary. Just as things were beginning to settle, Lily's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, pulling her back into the reality of the high-stakes world she had chosen. She glanced at the screen. It was a message from Sam. Lily, we've got a problem. Her stomach dropped. She quickly called him back, her mind already racing through a list of potential issues. What's going on? She asked as soon as Sam answered. We've got a rival restaurant opening up across the street, Sam said, his voice tight. They've been advertising like crazy, and the buzz is growing. I don't know how much longer we can hold on to our spot as the best in the neighborhood. Lily's heart skipped a beat. The competition had always been there, of course, other restaurants that offered similar menus, different atmospheres, and varying price points, but this was different. This felt like an all-out challenge, one that could jeopardize everything she had worked for. I'll be there in 10 minutes, Lily said, hanging up the phone and grabbing her jacket. When Lily arrived at La Mirage, Sam was already standing in front of the restaurant, surveying the street with a look of concern. Across the way, a newly opened modern eatery was gleaming under the streetlights, its sleek design and large neon sign practically screaming for attention. Lily looked up at the building, taking in the sharp lines of the new establishment. It was trendy, minimalist, and clearly built with an eye toward attracting the younger crowd, exactly the demographic that La Mirage had been cultivating for years. Well, they're not wasting any time, Lily muttered, her frustration bubbling to the surface. I know. They've got a big marketing budget and some serious social media clout, Sam said. They've already got people talking. We've got to figure out how to keep our loyal customers while drawing in new ones. Lily rubbed her temples, trying to formulate a plan. The competition was fierce, and this new restaurant had the resources to pull in a crowd. La Mirage had always prided itself on its homey atmosphere, its dedication to quality food, and the close-knit feeling of a family-run business. But if they didn't adapt, they could easily lose everything. What's their name? Lily asked, her voice steady but with an edge of concern. They're calling themselves the Urban Spoon, Sam said. It's sleek, modern, everything La Mirage isn't. Lily frowned. Sounds like a direct challenge. We've got to do something, Sam urged. People are going to start comparing us to them. We need a strategy. Lily stood in the middle of the sidewalk, her arms crossed as she observed the other restaurant. She could feel the pressure starting to build again, but this time, she wasn't going to let it overwhelm her. She had already faced bigger challenges, and she knew she could face this one too. We're not going to compete with them head-on, she said, after a moment of deep thought. They're trying to be all flash and glam. We don't need to do that. What we have is different. We're not just a place to eat, we're a place to experience. Sam raised an eyebrow, intrigued. So, what's the plan? Lily smiled, feeling the familiar spark of excitement that came when she had an idea. We focus on what makes La Mirage unique. We're going to create an experience that no one else can replicate. We're going to build stronger relationships with our customers, give them more than just a meal. We're going to give them memories. Sam's expression shifted from concern to curiosity. And how do we do that? We'll revamp our menu, Lily said, her mind already racing. Introduce some new seasonal dishes, highlight local ingredients, and offer more interactive dining experiences. We'll do something creative that brings our customers into the process, makes them feel part of the magic. And we'll market the hell out of it, get the word out that La Mirage isn't just another restaurant. Sam grinned. Now that sounds like a plan. Lily nodded, her confidence building with each word. We'll lean into the community aspect of La Mirage, partner with local farms, showcase local artists, host exclusive events. And we'll start a loyalty program, a VIP club for our regulars. The Urban Spoon might have their flashy designs, but we have heart. Over the next few days, Lily and Sam worked tirelessly on executing their new plan. They started reaching out to local farmers and food producers, building relationships that would ensure they had the best ingredients for their revamped menu. They also began brainstorming ideas for interactive dining experiences, such as chef's tables, wine pairings, and cooking classes that would draw in customers looking for something more than just a meal. Lily also put out a call for local artists to display their work in the restaurant, hoping to create a space that felt like more of a cultural hub than just a dining destination. She wanted La Mirage to stand out as a place that supported the community in every way it could. Meanwhile, Sam handled the logistics of the new marketing campaign. They launched a social media blitz, showcasing their new menu items and the unique experiences they were offering. They made sure to highlight the relationships they had built with local farmers and artisans, positioning La Mirage as a champion of quality, sustainable food and a beloved community gathering place. The response was immediate. The first night of the revamped menu saw a full house, and the reviews started pouring in, positive, glowing reviews from both critics and regulars. La Mirage wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. But Lily knew it wasn't over yet. The competition across the street was only going to get more intense, and the pressure was mounting. As she sat in her office that evening, reviewing the restaurant's progress, she couldn't help but feel the familiar burn of determination. They weren't just going to fight for their place, they were going to take it back, stronger than ever. And with each passing day, Lily grew more convinced of one thing: when you built something from the ground up, you didn't just fight to keep it, you fought to make it better than anyone could ever imagine. The weeks following the relaunch of La Mirage were some of the most challenging, yet rewarding, Lily had ever experienced. The restaurant's reputation was starting to shift, people were buzzing about the new menu, the community involvement, and the unique dining experiences they offered. The crowds were coming in, but so was the pressure. While things had started off well, the competition from the Urban Spoon was relentless, and Lily felt the weight of that competition every single day. Despite all the progress, there was still a part of her that couldn't shake the fear of it all slipping through her fingers. No matter how hard she worked, no matter how much she changed and adapted, she couldn't help but feel like she was constantly racing against a ticking clock. The restaurant world was fickle. A single misstep could undo everything. It was a crisp Friday afternoon, and the restaurant was bustling with the usual pre-dinner excitement. The tables were filling up quickly, the kitchen was humming with activity, and the staff was running like a well-oiled machine. But Lily wasn't in the dining room, greeting customers or overseeing service. She was in her office, staring at her computer screen, trying to make sense of the latest financial report. The numbers didn't add up. Lily's stomach churned as she scrolled through the details. Sales were steady, but costs were creeping up. The marketing campaign had been effective, but it wasn't enough to offset the rising overhead costs. The reality was setting in. They were still in the red. And while she had done everything she could to get things back on track, it wasn't clear if it was enough to turn things around. Just as she was starting to feel overwhelmed, her phone buzzed on the desk. She glanced at the screen and saw that it was Clint calling. Lily hesitated for a moment, unsure of what he would say. Since the conversation they had a few weeks ago, Clint had been supportive, but she knew he was still worried. He hadn't entirely given up on the idea of her bringing in outside help. He had suggested it once, and while she had brushed it off at the time, now, more than ever, she could see the appeal of getting some financial backing to help with the growing costs. She answered the call. "Hey, Clint," she said, trying to sound casual, but she could hear the tension in her voice. "Hey, Lil," Clint's voice was warm but firm. "How are things going?" "Same as usual," Lily replied, forcing a smile. "Busy, but we're making it work." Clint didn't buy it. "I know you're working hard, but I've been hearing some things from around the neighborhood. There's a lot of chatter about the urban spoon lately. They're getting a lot of traffic. It's starting to hurt us, isn't it?" Lily sighed. "It's a problem, Clint. I won't lie about that. But we've got our own loyal customers, and I'm doing everything I can to keep things fresh and competitive. We're not giving up." "I know you're not," Clint said, his voice softer now. "But you need to be careful. You're pushing yourself too hard. Have you looked at the financials lately? You're burning through cash faster than you're bringing it in." Lily's heart sank. He was right. The numbers were grim, and Clint's words only made her anxiety grow. She had known it deep down, but hearing it from someone else made it all the more real. "I've been managing everything I can," Lily replied, her voice tight. "But the costs of running the place are higher than we expected. I just don't know how much longer we can keep doing this without some kind of external help." "Have you considered taking the investment again?" Clint asked gently. "I know it wasn't your first choice, but maybe it's time to think about your long-term goals. La Mirage could expand, reach more people, and stay relevant. You're too talented to let it slip away." Lily hesitated. She knew what Clint was suggesting. She'd been here before, at a crossroads, where she had to decide whether to stick to her original vision or compromise for the sake of survival. "No, Clint," Lily said firmly, surprising herself with the strength in her voice. "I won't let it go. I believe in La Mirage. I believe in what we've built. I'm not selling out." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Clint finally spoke, his tone softer than before. "I get it, Lily. I'm just worried. I don't want you to burn yourself out. You don't have to do it alone." "I appreciate that," she said, swallowing the lump in her throat. "But I'm going to make this work. I have to." As the days passed, the pressure continued to mount. Lily spent sleepless nights working on the business side of things, adjusting the budget, meeting with suppliers, and brainstorming new ways to keep customers coming in. But the financial strain was real, and it was becoming harder and harder to stay optimistic. On the day of the next big event at La Mirage, a special wine pairing dinner with a local vineyard, Lily arrived early to oversee the preparations. The atmosphere was vibrant as usual, but there was a palpable sense of tension in the air. She knew that tonight's event could make or break things. They needed a strong turnout, a flawless execution, and glowing reviews. Anything less would hurt them. Lily worked tirelessly alongside the staff, ensuring that every detail was perfect. She greeted each guest with a smile, talked them through the menu, and made sure the service was top-notch. The night went smoothly, and the guests were pleased. But Lily couldn't shake the feeling that it wasn't enough. Just as the event was winding down, Lily noticed something that took her by surprise. A couple sitting at a nearby table was discussing the newest competitor across the street, the Urban Spoon. They mentioned the buzz surrounding it, how it was trendy and had been getting rave reviews. Her stomach churned again. It was happening. People were starting to talk more about the competition, and it wasn't long before word of mouth would spread. She couldn't keep fighting this battle alone. Later that night, after the last guest had left, Lily sat in the dining room, staring out the window at the lights of the city. She realized that no matter how hard she worked, no matter how many changes she made, there was always a new challenge on the horizon. The competition wasn't going to stop. But neither was she. She stood up from her seat, determination settling in her chest. This was her restaurant, her dream, and she wasn't going to let it slip away, not without a fight. The following week, the tension inside La Mirage was palpable. Every morning, Lily woke up with a sense of urgency, knowing that she had to find a way to keep the momentum going despite the looming competition from the urban spoon. Though the restaurant was full every night, she knew that there was no room for complacency. There was a razor-thin line between success and failure in this industry, and if she didn't figure out a way to keep pushing forward, La Mirage could become a footnote in the neighborhood's history. The exhaustion was wearing on her. She had been working around the clock, often skipping meals and barely sleeping, her mind constantly racing with ideas to stay ahead. But every time she took a step forward, it felt like she was being pulled 2 steps back by the mounting financial strain and the growing buzz about their competitor. It was late on a Thursday afternoon when Lily found herself at her desk, poring over a new proposal for a high-profile food critic who wanted to review the restaurant. She was excited but also wary. The last thing she needed was a critic who might decide that the changes she'd made weren't enough. Every review felt like a high-stakes gamble, and she could feel the weight of it pressing down on her. Just then, her phone buzzed again. It was a text from Sam. The Urban Spoon is having a special event tomorrow night. They're bringing in a celebrity chef for a live cooking demonstration. Lily's heart sank. The Urban Spoon was pulling out all the stops. If they were trying to make a splash in the community, they were certainly succeeding. And now, with a celebrity chef involved, the competition was about to get fiercer. She quickly dialed Sam's number. "We need to do something about this, now," she said when he picked up. I know, Sam replied, sounding equally stressed. "They're pulling out all the big guns, and we're stuck playing catch-up." Lily closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. "We need to turn this into an opportunity, Sam. If they're going after the celebrity chef route, we can't compete on that level. But we have something they don't have, our history, our community, and our passion." Sam's voice was thoughtful. "So what's the plan?" Lily's mind began to race. The Urban Spoon was using glitz and glamour to attract attention, but that wasn't their style. They didn't need to chase the latest trends. They needed to remind their customers of what made La Mirage special. It wasn't just the food, it was the experience, the heart, and the authenticity. "We're going to do something bold," Lily said, her confidence starting to build. "We're going to host an event of our own, something they could never pull off. We're going to invite the community in and let them see who we really are. Let's put together a farm-to-table dinner with local chefs, musicians, and artists. We'll invite everyone we know, and we'll make it an event that feels like a celebration of what La Mirage represents. We'll show them that we're more than just a place to eat, we're a place where people connect, where art, food, and culture come together." Sam let out a slow breath. "You think we can pull it off in such short notice?" "We have to," Lily said firmly. "I don't care how much work it takes. We're doing this." The next 24 hours were a blur of activity. Lily immediately began reaching out to local farmers, chefs, musicians, and artists to bring the vision to life. She knew this event needed to capture the essence of La Mirage, authentic, intimate, and deeply tied to the community. With Sam's help, they put together an impressive lineup of local talent, offering a true farm-to-table experience that celebrated everything the neighborhood stood for. Lily knew that the event had to be unlike anything the Urban Spoon could offer. They could hire celebrity chefs and pay for flashy marketing, but they couldn't replicate the feeling of belonging, the sense of place that La Mirage had cultivated over the years. This event was going to remind everyone what mattered most: connection. By the time the event kicked off the next evening, the restaurant was buzzing with excitement. Local families, longtime regulars, and even some curious newcomers filled the dining room, eager to experience the magic Lily had promised. The menu was a perfect blend of fresh, locally sourced ingredients prepared by a collection of talented chefs who were eager to showcase their culinary skills. Throughout the evening, local musicians played live acoustic sets, adding to the intimate, welcoming atmosphere. Lily couldn't help but feel a wave of pride wash over her as she moved through the dining room, greeting guests and watching the joy on their faces. The event was a huge success. There was laughter, clinking glasses, and an overwhelming sense of community that was palpable. It was everything La Mirage stood for. The next day, Lily woke up to a flurry of messages. The event had been a hit. Social media was buzzing with photos of the night, and customers were sharing their experiences online. She'd captured the essence of what made the restaurant so special and shared it with everyone who walked through the door. The reviews were overwhelmingly positive. People were talking about the realness of the experience, the sense of family, and the quality of the food. For the first time in weeks, Lily felt like she was on the right track again. But there was one more surprise in store. As Lily checked the restaurant's social media accounts, she saw a post from a familiar face, Clint. He had taken a photo of the event and shared it on his own page, praising La Mirage for its authenticity and heart. The post had gone viral, and in the space of just a few hours, the buzz surrounding the restaurant exploded. More reservations were flooding in, and La Mirage was quickly becoming the talk of the town once again. The event had not only brought in a new wave of customers, but it had also given Lily a renewed sense of purpose. For the first time in weeks, the tension she had felt about the competition seemed to melt away. She wasn't fighting for attention anymore, she was simply being true to the vision she'd always had for La Mirage. And in the end, that was more than enough. As she watched the staff cleaning up after the event, Lily smiled to herself. She had proven to herself, and to everyone else, that La Mirage wasn't going anywhere. The days after the successful farm-to-table event brought a refreshing sense of relief to Lily. For the first time in months, there was a noticeable shift in the air at La Mirage. The staff seemed more energized, the customers were happier, and Lily herself felt like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. The event had solidified the restaurant's place in the community, and business was on the upswing again. But Lily knew this wasn't the end. There was still more to be done. The following Monday morning, as she sat down to go over the schedule for the week, her phone buzzed. It was a call from Clint. "Hey, Lil," Clint's voice came through the phone, upbeat but with an underlying seriousness. "You're not going to believe this." Lily leaned back in her chair, intrigued. "What happened? Remember that rival investor from before? The one who was interested in La Mirage? Well, he's been making waves again. He's been in talks with the owner of the Urban Spoon for some time now," Clint explained. "And it looks like they're trying to buy out a couple of local restaurants, including La Mirage." Lily's breath caught in her throat. "What? Why would they want La Mirage?" "I don't know," Clint replied. "But it's clear they've been circling you for a while. There's a whole plan to consolidate restaurants, expand their reach, and lock down the market." Lily was silent for a moment, her thoughts spinning. She'd known that the competition would always be fierce, but this was different. This wasn't just about a rivalry between two restaurants, this was about someone trying to take away everything she had worked for, trying to rewrite the story of La Mirage. "You're saying they're trying to buy me out?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Exactly," Clint confirmed. "And from what I've heard, they're prepared to make a pretty generous offer. But I'm not sure you're going to want to take it." Lily sat up straight, a sense of determination flooding her body. She wasn't about to let this happen, not without a fight. "Clint, I won't sell out. Not now, not ever. La Mirage is mine," she said fiercely, her words filled with conviction. Clint was quiet for a beat before responding. "I get it, Lily. But just be careful. I know you don't want to think about it, but if they get their hands on your restaurant, they could turn everything upside down. I just don't want to see you lose what you've built." Lily closed her eyes, knowing Clint's warning came from a place of care, but she also knew he didn't understand. This was more than just a business, it was her life, her passion, her dream. She wasn't going to let someone else decide what happened to it. "I won't lose it," she replied, her voice steady. "I'm going to fight, Clint. Thanks for letting me know, though." After hanging up, Lily sat there in silence for a while, letting the news sink in. The thought of someone else owning La Mirage, someone who didn't know the first thing about its soul, its essence, its heart, was unbearable. But this was the reality of the restaurant world, cutthroat, unforgiving, and constantly changing. She had to make a decision about what to do next. The choice was hers to make. The following week, Lily began to gather information about this mysterious investor. She had to learn as much as she could before making any decisions. She reached out to her network of contacts, spoke to other restaurant owners who had dealt with similar situations, and even met with a lawyer to discuss her options. The more she learned, the clearer it became, the investor behind the Urban Spoon was serious. He wasn't just trying to buy up the competition, he was building a restaurant empire, and he wasn't afraid to use aggressive tactics to get what he wanted. The more Lily dug, the more she realized just how far-reaching his influence was. He had connections in high places, and his financial backing was substantial. If she didn't act quickly, there was a very real chance La Mirage could be gone, replaced by another chain, another soulless restaurant that lacked the authenticity La Mirage had. But Lily wasn't going to back down. Not now. She sat down with Sam, who had become her closest ally throughout this ordeal, and laid out everything she had learned. "They're coming for us, Sam," she said, her voice low but determined. "But I'm not going down without a fight." Sam looked at her with a mixture of admiration and concern. "What are you thinking?" Lily stood up, pacing the room. "We need to be proactive. We can't wait for them to make an offer. We need to take control of the narrative. We have to show the community that La Mirage is irreplaceable. We're not just another restaurant, we're a cornerstone of this place. And we're not selling." Sam nodded. "So, what's the plan?" "We need to strengthen our ties with the local community," Lily said, her mind racing with ideas. "We've got the event momentum, but now we need to do something bigger. We'll host a fundraiser for a local cause, something meaningful that brings people together. Maybe we can partner with a charity or hold an art auction. We'll make sure to invite key influencers and media. And I'll get the word out about how important La Mirage is to this neighborhood." Sam smiled. "I love it. Let's make sure everyone knows who La Mirage really is." Lily smiled back. It felt good to have a plan, to take action. She wasn't just going to sit back and wait for the storm to hit. She was going to fight for everything she had built, and she was going to show the world what La Mirage meant to this community. Over the next few weeks, La Mirage became more than just a restaurant, it became a symbol of what it meant to build something from the ground up, to create a space that reflected the values and passions of the people who worked there. The fundraiser they organized was a massive success, bringing in not only donations but also media coverage that further solidified La Mirage's place in the community. The event was a resounding triumph, and Lily could see the shift in how people viewed the restaurant. They weren't just dining there, they were supporting something bigger than themselves. And that connection was something money couldn't buy. It wasn't long before the mysterious investor's representatives reached out, but Lily was no longer afraid of what they had to offer. She wasn't going to be swayed by flashy offers and promises of growth. She had something far more valuable, the love and loyalty of a community that believed in what La Mirage stood for. As Lily stood at the front of the restaurant that evening, watching her guests enjoy their meals, she felt a quiet sense of peace wash over her. She knew there would always be challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long time, she felt truly in control of her future. The weeks following the fundraiser had brought a new kind of stability to La Mirage. The restaurant was thriving, bustling with energy every evening, filled with patrons who came for more than just the food. It had become a gathering place, a true community hub. Lily couldn't help but smile as she walked through the dining room, chatting with customers and taking in the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses. This was what she had fought for, and now it felt like all her hard work was finally paying off. But deep down, Lily knew that the calm wouldn't last forever. The investor, whom she still hadn't met in person, hadn't made a move yet, but she could feel his presence lurking just beneath the surface. The threat still hung over her, like a storm cloud just waiting to burst. She had to prepare for the inevitable. She couldn't let herself become complacent. One afternoon, Lily met Clint for coffee at a small cafe down the street from La Mirage. They had both been so busy that it had been weeks since they'd had a proper conversation. As they sat down, Clint looked at her, his expression a mixture of concern and admiration. "Lily, I've got to ask. How are you holding up?" he said, pushing a cup of coffee toward her. Lily took a sip, savoring the warmth. "I'm doing okay. La Mirage is doing great. The fundraiser was a huge success, and the community really rallied behind us. But," she paused, letting the words hang in the air. "I can't shake the feeling that something's coming." Clint leaned back in his chair, nodding. "Yeah. I don't think this is over. You've built something incredible, but if they want to take you down, they're going to keep pushing." "I know," Lily said, her voice quiet but resolute. "But I'm not going to back down. I've got a team, a community, and a vision that's bigger than any offer they can make. I've come too far to let it all slip away." Clint studied her for a moment, as if weighing her words. "I believe in you, Lily. But don't forget, this isn't just about you anymore. You've built something special, and it's worth fighting for." "I haven't forgotten," she said, her eyes hardening with determination. "But I'm not just fighting for the restaurant. I'm fighting for everything La Mirage represents. I want it to be a place where people come together, where they feel like they belong. That's what we've created here, and that's what I'm going to protect." Clint gave a small nod. "You've got the right mindset. Just remember, you don't have to do this alone. You've got people who care about you and want to see you succeed. Lean on them when you need to." Lily smiled, grateful for Clint's support. "Thanks, Clint. I won't forget that." As the days went on, Lily worked tirelessly to keep La Mirage on track. She continued to build relationships with local suppliers, artists, and chefs, ensuring that the restaurant remained an integral part of the community. She knew that the key to staying ahead of the competition wasn't just about offering great food, it was about offering an experience that couldn't be replicated. But in the back of her mind, she knew the storm was coming. And when it did, she would have to be ready. Then, one morning, it happened. Lily's phone buzzed with a notification that made her heart race. It was a news article, one she had been dreading for weeks. The headline read, "Local Restaurant Empire Acquires La Mirage in Shock Buyout Deal." Lily's hands shook as she clicked on the link, her eyes scanning the article. The investor had finally made his move. He had made a massive offer to purchase La Mirage, one that Lily had turned down multiple times. But this time, things were different. The offer was too good to refuse, too tempting for some to pass up. The article also mentioned that the Urban Spoon was now officially part of the deal, meaning the investor would now control both restaurants. Lily felt a pang of anger and betrayal course through her. This wasn't just about a business deal, it was about her life's work, her dream. The restaurant she had built from the ground up, the place she had poured her heart and soul into, was now in jeopardy. She called Sam immediately. "Sam, did you see this?" Lily's voice was tight with emotion. Sam paused for a moment before responding. "Yeah, I saw it. I'm sorry, Lily. I know how much this means to you." "This isn't over," Lily said, her voice hardening. They can't just take what's mine. I'm going to fight this. Sam was quiet for a moment. I believe in you, Lily. But we need to be smart about this. You've already turned down their offers before. Maybe it's time to make a different move. Let's look at all our options. Lily nodded, taking a deep breath. I'm not giving up without a fight. La Mirage is my restaurant, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect it. In the following days, Lily met with her lawyer to discuss her options. The legal landscape was complicated, and there were a lot of moving parts. She needed to act quickly, but she also needed to be careful. There was a chance that the investor's offer could still be negotiated or rejected, but it would require careful planning and strategy. If La Mirage was to survive, Lily needed to make the right moves, and she couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Meanwhile, Clint continued to offer his support. He was a steady presence in Lily's life, offering her advice and helping her think through the challenges ahead. She knew she could rely on him to keep her grounded, to remind her of the bigger picture. As Lily sat in her office, surrounded by papers and contracts, she realized that this battle wasn't just about business, it was about the future. If she lost La Mirage, she would lose more than just a restaurant. She would lose the heart of a community, the place where people came together to celebrate life. And that, Lily knew, was something worth fighting for. The days after the buyout offer from the investor felt like a blur to Lily. There was a constant hum of activity at La Mirage, but beneath the surface, her mind was a whirlwind of calculations, options, and decisions. Each day, as she watched her team work tirelessly to keep the restaurant running smoothly, she couldn't help but think, how long can I keep this up? The offer had been tempting for many, but it wasn't just the money. It was the thought of La Mirage, her restaurant, her dream, being swept away by someone who didn't understand the soul of it. This wasn't about profit margins or growth for Lily. This was about preserving what made La Mirage unique, the community, the heart, the experience that couldn't be replicated by another corporate entity. The weight of it all began to settle in. The investor had resources, connections, and a network of loyal followers who could easily transform the restaurant into something it was never meant to be. It could lose its charm, its intimacy. It could lose everything that made it feel like home. Lily knew she had to take action. That evening, after the last customer had left and the staff was cleaning up, Lily called a meeting with her core team. They gathered in the small office at the back of the restaurant, the air thick with anticipation. Sam, Alex, and Sarah sat around the table, their expressions grim. Lily stood in front of them, her hands braced against the desk. Listen, I know things have been a little chaotic lately, and I know we've all got a lot on our plates. But we need to talk about something important. La Mirage is at a crossroads, Lily began, her voice steady but firm. The investor who's been circling us is making another move, and this time, he's serious. I'm not going to let La Mirage become just another name on a corporate list. We need to fight for what's ours. Alex, the sous chef, was the first to speak. What exactly are we up against? We've turned down his offers before, but now it feels like he's not going to take no for an answer. Lily nodded. He's relentless. This isn't just a buyout offer anymore, it's a power play. He's trying to absorb La Mirage and other local restaurants to dominate the market. And he's got the money and connections to make it happen. But I'm not going to let him. Sarah, the front-of-house manager, looked concerned. So, what do we do? How do we fight back? Lily took a deep breath. We start by making sure the community knows exactly what's at stake. La Mirage isn't just a restaurant, it's a part of this town. It's where people come together, where they feel like family. We're going to show the world that we're not just another business, we're a staple. A symbol. Sam, who had been quiet up until this point, spoke up. Lily, I agree with you. But we need to be strategic. We can't just rely on emotions to win this battle. We need a plan, something that makes the investor think twice about taking us on. Have you thought about going public with this? Lily frowned. Publicly? Are you suggesting we turn this into a media circus? Not necessarily a circus, Sam clarified. But if we can get the community behind us, get people talking, we might be able to put enough pressure on the investor that he has to back off. We can start a petition, organize a rally, use social media to rally support. If we can get enough people talking, it could make him reconsider. Lily considered this. It was a risky move, but it could work. If they could tap into the local sentiment, if they could show the world how much La Mirage meant to the community, they might stand a chance. All right, she said, her voice resolute. We'll do it. Let's make this fight bigger than just us. Let's make it about the entire town. Over the next few days, the team worked tirelessly to prepare for their campaign. They created a social media hashtag #SaveLaMirage, that began to gain traction as locals shared their stories and photos of the restaurant. They reached out to bloggers, local news outlets, and influencers to spread the word. Alex and Sarah worked on crafting the perfect message, one that would resonate with people on a personal level. They told the story of La Mirage, how it had started as a small, family-owned restaurant and had grown to become a symbol of what it meant to build something from the ground up. But it wasn't just the restaurant's history that they focused on. They also highlighted its importance to the community. They showed how La Mirage wasn't just a place to eat, it was a place where memories were made, where celebrations and friendships blossomed. They shared stories of first dates, anniversaries, and family reunions that had taken place under its roof. The goal was to make people feel that if they lost La Mirage, they would be losing more than just a dining spot, they would be losing a piece of their community. Then, on the evening of the rally, the entire restaurant was filled with excitement. Lily had arranged for a local band to perform, and there were tables set up outside for guests to sign a petition. The turnout was overwhelming. People from all walks of life, families, young professionals, elderly couples, came to show their support. The streets were lined with signs that read "Save La Mirage and keep our community strong." It was clear that the town wasn't just fighting for a restaurant, they were fighting for something bigger. As Lily looked out over the crowd, her heart swelled with pride. This was what she had always dreamed of. A place where people came together, where they supported one another. It was more than just a restaurant, it was a lifeline. But even as she basked in the moment, she knew the battle was far from over. The investor wouldn't back down easily. The media would soon pick up on the story, and the pressure would mount. But Lily was ready. She had the community behind her, and together, they would fight. As the evening wound down, Clint approached her, his eyes gleaming with admiration. "You did it, Lil," he said, his voice full of pride. "This is exactly what you needed." Lily smiled, feeling the weight of everything she was fighting for. "This is just the beginning. We're not backing down now." Clint gave a nod of agreement. "Let's make sure the world knows exactly what La Mirage means." Lily stood tall, her mind set on the next steps. This wasn't just a battle for the restaurant, it was a battle for everything that mattered to her. And no matter what happened, she would keep fighting for it. The days following the rally were filled with anticipation and a sense of urgency. Lily and her team had managed to rally a significant amount of public support for La Mirage. The social media movement had gained traction, and the local press had picked up the story. For the first time in weeks, Lily felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could win this. But that hope was short-lived. The investor wasn't one to back down easily, and it quickly became clear that he had a strategy of his own. In the days following the rally, he unleashed a media campaign that cast La Mirage in a completely different light. The articles were well-written, persuasive, and, at first glance, seemed to come from credible sources. They painted a picture of La Mirage as a small business struggling to stay afloat, one that had outgrown its usefulness in the competitive world of fine dining. The narrative was simple: La Mirage was a relic of the past. It couldn't keep up with the demands of the modern culinary scene. The investor, on the other hand, was portrayed as a visionary, a business magnate who could take the restaurant into the future, bringing it new life and ensuring its longevity. Lily watched in disbelief as these articles began to circulate, and as a few of her regular customers began to question the future of La Mirage. She had known this day would come, but that didn't make it any easier. The investors' attack on the reputation of La Mirage felt like a personal betrayal. "Do you see this?" Sam said, sliding a tablet across the table to Lily. She looked down at the screen, where an article from a prominent food critic read, "In a world where innovation is key, it's time to say goodbye to the old guard. La Mirage may have been a community staple, but it's time for something new." Lily clenched her jaw. This isn't just about business anymore. He's trying to destroy everything we've built. He's trying to tear apart the heart of this place. Alex, who had been pacing nervously, spoke up. "I knew he wouldn't just let us take the high road. But this? It feels like he's trying to bully us into submission." "I won't let that happen," Lily said firmly, looking at her team. "We have something he can never take from us, the people. La Mirage is more than just a restaurant, it's a part of this community. And if we stand together, we can prove that we're worth fighting for." The team nodded in agreement, but Lily could see the uncertainty in their eyes. The media campaign was working. Some of the regulars were beginning to wonder if La Mirage had outlived its usefulness. Lily couldn't afford to let that doubt take root. She had to act fast. Lily made a decision: if the investor wanted to turn La Mirage into just another corporate chain, she was going to show him the power of the community. She started calling in favors from everyone who had supported her: chefs, local artists, regular customers, even the people who had signed her petition. She began planning an event that would show the world just how much La Mirage meant to the town, and how much it had contributed to the local economy. The event would be bold, unlike anything they'd done before. It would be a celebration of everything that made La Mirage unique: its food, its history, and, most importantly, its people. The event was set for the following week, the heart of the community gala. Lily and her team worked around the clock to prepare. They reached out to local musicians, artists, and food vendors who had collaborated with them in the past. They turned La Mirage into a showcase for everything the community had to offer, from live art installations to food stations featuring local produce. It would be an opportunity for everyone to come together, share a meal, and remind themselves of the values they had been fighting for all along. Lily's heart raced as the days ticked down. This event could make or break their fight to save the restaurant. She couldn't afford to fail. The night of the Heart of the Community Gala arrived, and the restaurant was transformed. The space was lit by soft, twinkling lights, and the smell of freshly prepared dishes wafted through the air. The crowd was a mix of regulars, newcomers, and people who had never set foot in La Mirage before. As the guests entered, they were greeted with a sense of warmth, the kind of welcome that Lily had worked so hard to cultivate. "This is amazing," Sarah said, gazing out at the room filled with people. "I can feel the energy. This is what it's all about." Lily nodded. "We have to show the world what this place really means. We have to remind everyone why we're fighting." As the evening went on, the atmosphere became electric. Guests mingled, sampled food from local producers, and watched live performances by musicians who had played at La Mirage over the years. Lily's heart swelled with pride as she saw how much the community had embraced the event. But just as things seemed to be going smoothly, there was a sudden shift in the air. A black SUV pulled up outside, and a few well-dressed men stepped out. Lily's stomach churned as she recognized them, representatives of the investor. They had come to watch. Lily's instincts kicked in. This was her moment. She walked up to the representatives, her chin held high, and greeted them with the kind of grace and poise that only years of hard work could produce. "Good evening," she said, extending a hand. "I'm Lily Marshall, owner of La Mirage. I'm glad you could join us tonight. The representatives looked at her coldly, but one of them, a man in a sharp suit, offered a nod. We've heard a lot about this event. I must admit, you've created quite the spectacle. Lily smiled. It's not a spectacle. It's a statement. La Mirage isn't just a restaurant. It's the heart of this community. And no matter how much money you have or how many businesses you own, you can never take that away. The man gave a slight smirk but didn't say anything. He clearly wasn't impressed by her words. But Lily didn't need to impress him. She just needed to make him see that this was more than a business deal, it was personal. As the night wore on, the representatives stayed for a while, observing, taking notes. But as the event began to wind down, they quietly slipped out, leaving behind nothing but a faint reminder of the battle that was about to come. Lily watched them go, her resolve growing stronger. She knew that the investor hadn't been swayed by the event. But he had seen the power of the community, and that, she knew, was something he couldn't ignore for long. The days after the Heart of the Community Gala were a mix of exhaustion and adrenaline for Lily and her team. The community's support was stronger than ever, but the battle with the investor was far from over. The event had served as a wake-up call for everyone involved, but it had also drawn a line in the sand. There was no going back now. Lily had hoped that the investor's representatives had seen the depth of what La Mirage meant to the town. But she wasn't naive enough to think that a single event would change the course of a business deal. The stakes were higher now, and Lily had a gut feeling that the final confrontation was drawing closer. It was only a matter of time before the investor made his next move. Lily sat at the head of the table in the back office at La Mirage, the weight of the upcoming decision bearing down on her. Sam, Alex, and Sarah had gathered with her to discuss their next steps. The restaurant was buzzing with activity, but the hum of conversation and clinking of silverware seemed distant as Lily fixed her eyes on the table before her. We can't keep letting him control the narrative, Lily said, breaking the silence. I've been thinking about it, and we need to go on the offensive. We need to take back control of the story before he spreads any more lies. Sarah nodded. Agreed. But how do we do that? We've already had the rally, the gala. People know how much La Mirage means, but he's got so much money and influence. I'm afraid it's just not enough. Lily's jaw tightened. It's never been about money. It's about heart. But we need to be strategic. If we want to win this, we need to show the public that we're not just a small-town restaurant anymore. We've become a symbol. And symbols can't be bought. Sam leaned forward, his eyes sharp. What if we got some big names on our side? We have a lot of loyal customers, but we need to expand our reach. Maybe some of those famous chefs and restaurant owners who know La Mirage could come out publicly in support. If we can show the world that even the industry's heavyweights back us, it'll be harder for the investor to dismiss us. Lily paused, considering the idea. It was risky, but it might be exactly what they needed. Let's do it. I'll reach out to a few people. If we can get just one or two big names on board, it'll make a world of difference. The next few days were a whirlwind of phone calls, emails, and messages. Lily called in every favor she had ever earned over the years. She reached out to chefs, restaurateurs, and industry leaders she had met throughout her career. Some had already heard about the fight for La Mirage and were eager to lend their support. Others were more hesitant, wary of getting involved in such a high-profile battle. But Lily was relentless. She refused to take no for an answer. By the end of the week, she had secured the backing of two of the biggest names in the culinary world, Chef Emma Roberts, a Michelin-starred chef known for her innovative approach to farm-to-table dining, and Chef Victor Hayes, the owner of one of the most prestigious fine dining establishments in the country. With their public support, Lily knew they could turn the tide. The investor would have a harder time convincing the public that La Mirage was just another failing business when some of the industry's best chefs were vouching for its place in the culinary landscape. The announcement came in the form of a joint press release. Chef Roberts and Chef Hayes both made statements, publicly backing Lily's fight to save La Mirage. They talked about the importance of community-driven restaurants and how places like La Mirage were essential to preserving the integrity of the restaurant industry. The press release hit social media like a tidal wave. Journalists were quick to pick it up, and soon, every major food publication was covering the story. The tone was no longer one of skepticism or dismissal. Now, the narrative was shifting in Lily's favor. La Mirage wasn't just a local restaurant, it was a cultural landmark, supported by some of the best minds in the business. But the investor wasn't about to let the momentum slip. Within hours, his legal team issued a formal statement, claiming that Lily's efforts to publicize the battle had gone too far. They accused her of being unprofessional and undermining the value of the restaurant. Lily read the statement with a scowl. "He's trying to play the victim," she muttered. "But we've already won the narrative. This is just his last-ditch effort." The final confrontation came sooner than anyone expected. A meeting was arranged, where Lily and the investor would sit down and discuss the future of La Mirage. It would be a pivotal moment, one that would determine the fate of the restaurant. The tension in the air was palpable as Lily walked into the conference room, her mind focused and her heart pounding. The investor was already seated at the table, his sharp suit and icy demeanor unchanged from the last time they met. His legal team sat behind him, ready to back him up with any argument necessary. "Lily," the investor said, his voice smooth but cold. "I see you've managed to rally some support. It's impressive, really. But you must know, you're fighting a losing battle." Lily sat down, her posture confident. "I'm not fighting a battle. I'm fighting for what's right. La Mirage isn't just a business, it's a part of this community. It's something people care about. And that's not something you can buy or control." The investor's lips curled into a smirk. "I understand your passion, Lily. But passion doesn't pay the bills. Business is about profit, not sentimentality. And it's clear that La Mirage has reached its peak. You've done well, but it's time for a change." Lily leaned forward, her voice steady and unwavering. "I disagree. And I'm not backing down. La Mirage isn't for sale, not to you or anyone else." The room fell silent for a moment. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. The investor stared at Lily, as if weighing his next move. But she could see the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. She had made him doubt himself, doubt his approach. He cleared his throat and looked at his legal team, then back at Lily. "All right, then," he said, his tone surprisingly softer. "I'll make you one last offer. Sell me the restaurant, and I'll make sure it's taken care of. You'll walk away with a fortune, and you'll never have to worry about La Mirage again." Lily took a deep breath, her response clear. "No deal." With that, the meeting ended. Lily knew the fight wasn't over yet, but she had just made her stand. She had drawn the line in the sand. Now, there was only one thing left to do: win. The days after the meeting were filled with uncertainty. The investor had made his final offer, and Lily had turned him down. But the battle was far from over. The investor, still determined to take control of La Mirage, began ramping up his pressure. Legal threats came one after another, each more aggressive than the last. Lily's phone was flooded with calls from her lawyer, who tried to calm her nerves while explaining the legal complexity of the situation. But Lily was resolute. The community had rallied around La Mirage, and she wasn't going to back down now. She knew this fight wasn't just for her, it was for the future of the restaurant and for everyone who had supported it over the years. It was a week after the final meeting when Lily got the call that would change everything. Lily sat at her desk in the back office, staring at the papers in front of her. Her fingers drummed anxiously on the wood. She had heard rumors that the investor might finally back off, but nothing had been confirmed. The pressure of the ongoing legal battles, combined with the weight of knowing the restaurant's future was on the line, was beginning to take its toll. Just as she was about to give up for the day, her phone rang. It was her lawyer. "Lily, you're not going to believe this," her lawyer said, his voice filled with excitement. "The investor is backing down. He's withdrawing his offer. La Mirage is yours. The legal team has filed the paperwork, and it's all over." Lily's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't believe it. After all the tension, the arguments, and the sleepless nights, the fight was finally over. "Wait," she said, her voice trembling. "He's really backing down?" "Yes," her lawyer confirmed. "It's official. The investor has withdrawn his bid. He's not pursuing the restaurant anymore. La Mirage is yours to keep." Lily sat back in her chair, trying to process the news. The relief that washed over her was immediate, but it was quickly followed by a flood of emotions. She thought about the rally, the heart of the community gala, the long nights spent working alongside her team, and the endless messages of support from the people who believed in her. It had all led to this moment. "We did it," Lily whispered, almost to herself. She had fought for what she believed in, and in the end, it had paid off. The news spread quickly. Within hours, local media outlets were covering the story, reporting that La Mirage had triumphed over the powerful investor. Headlines across town read, "Local restaurant wins big, La Mirage stands strong against corporate takeover," and, "Community-fueled victory, La Mirage retains its soul." Lily knew this wasn't just a victory for her, it was a victory for the entire town. The community had shown that when they stood together, they could take on even the most powerful forces and win. She couldn't help but smile as she read the comments flooding in on social media. People were congratulating her, thanking her for saving the restaurant that had meant so much to them. Later that day, Lily held a small press conference outside of La Mirage, the restaurant buzzing with activity behind her. The crowd of reporters and photographers gathered in front of her, eager to hear her statement. Lily cleared her throat, her voice steady but emotional. "I stand here today, not just as the owner of La Mirage, but as a representative of this community. This victory isn't just mine, it's ours. We fought for what we believed in, and together, we've shown that passion, love, and dedication can overcome even the most difficult challenges." She paused, looking out at the crowd, and then continued. "I'm proud to announce that La Mirage will continue to serve this community. We're going to make it even better, stronger, and more inclusive than ever before. This isn't the end of our story, it's just the beginning." The crowd erupted in applause, and Lily could see the joy on the faces of the people who had supported her throughout the fight. It felt like the culmination of a long, hard journey, and in many ways, it was. But Lily knew the real work had only just begun. In the weeks that followed, La Mirage flourished. With the threat of the investor gone, Lily and her team were able to focus on what truly mattered, the food, the people, and the experience. They introduced new dishes to the menu, sourced more ingredients from local farms, and hosted even more community events. The restaurant became a hub of activity, attracting more and more people from all walks of life. The legacy of La Mirage was no longer just about preserving a piece of history, it was about creating a future built on the foundation of community and love for good food. And Lily was at the helm, leading the charge. As for the investor, he faded into the background, his attempt to take over La Mirage nothing more than a footnote in the restaurant's storied history. The investor had underestimated the power of a community that truly cared for something. He had underestimated Lily's resolve. One evening, as Lily stood at the front of the restaurant, watching the hustle and bustle of La Mirage, she reflected on the journey. She thought about the countless hours she had spent fighting for this moment, the sacrifices she had made, and the people who had been by her side every step of the way. She smiled, knowing that she had learned some valuable lessons along the way. The battle had taught her that you don't have to fight alone to win. It had shown her that sometimes, the things that matter most can't be measured in money or success, but in the connections we build, the love we share, and the strength we find in each other. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. Have you ever fought for something that truly mattered to you? What did you learn along the way?